3 minutes to 2:30 p.m. That is the official time that is the official time for the commencement of the National Assembly proceedings. And we are glad that you have made time to join us this afternoon of the 29th of February, the year 2024. This is the live proceeding of the National Assembly afternoon sitting. And this live broadcast is brought to you by the Parliamentary Broadcasting Unit in partnership with the Kenya Broadcasting Corporation. On to the highlights for the National Assembly's sitting this afternoon is that members will be resuming debate on the Employment Amendment Bill originating from the Senate, Bill number 11 of 2022, a bill that is sponsored by the Honorable Member for Runyenjes, Honorable Eric Karemba Mushangi, who is also the chairperson, the Departmental Committee on Labor. This is a bill that is at its second reading stage. Therefore, already debate on it is underway. But it was interrupted on the Wednesday, February 28th, that is yesterday in the afternoon sitting. And it is a part of the business that members will be considering this afternoon, which basically is a debate that is being resumed after it was interrupted yesterday. This is a bill that has received amendments to it. The amendments is the insertion of a new section. This section is section number 27A. Remember, this is a bill that provides for the right to disconnect, the right of employees to have their personal time and privacy respected. It is a bill that has a new section 27A, and the members will be considering that. But as you can see, the Deputy Speaker of the National Assembly, Honorable Gladys Boss, is in the chambers. Allow me to hand you over to this live broadcast that is brought to you by PBU in partnership with KBC. Good afternoon.
Honorable members, let us pray. Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness have appointed the offices of leaders and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of the people, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor as your servants whom you have been pleased to call to the performance of important trusts in this republic. Let your blessings descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of our country and of those whose interests you have committed to our church. Amen. I direct that the bell be rung for 10 minutes.
Now, the directive by the Deputy Speaker, Honorable Gladys Boss, on the 10-minute quorum bell for the House to attain its requisite quorum before the business commences is pursuant to the National Assembly Standing Order number 34, Part 1, that indicates that a quorum of the House shall be 50. This is a quorum at the commencement of the House business shall be 50 members to be seated in the chambers once the chair is taken. But following the lack of that quorum, then it has necessitated the Deputy Speaker, who is the one who will be chairing this afternoon sitting, to order for a quorum bell to be rung. Of course, for members who may be within the precincts of Parliament but yet to walk into the chambers, that is, of course, to alert them that the House requires their presence for the business slated for that particular sitting, in this case, this afternoon sitting, to start. Standing Order 34 Part 2 indicates if there is not quorum present when the chair is taken, as we have seen, at the time appointed of a meeting of the House, immediately after the saying of the prayer, the Speaker shall order the bell to be rung for 10 minutes. So if you are just joining us, is that the chair has been taken, but the House does not have the required number of members inside it, that is 50 members or more. And that is what has necessitated the quorum bell. It is currently underway. We will be seeing members walking in, much as the chair has been taken. But of course, this is for the members to walk in. As you can see, that is Honorable Beatrice Elachi walking in. But of course, we can see members already seated. And once the quorum is achieved, as per the traditions of the House, then we will have the Sergeant at Arms indicate that the quorum has been achieved, and immediately the Speaker shall call the House to order, and the business will, without much ado, of course, kick off. But on the highlights of what the members are expected to engage with or engage in this afternoon is that resumption of debate on the amendment, on the Employment Amendment Bill, a bill that is originating from the Senate, that is sponsored by the Runyenjes Member of Parliament, as you can see, Honorable Eric Karemba Mushangi at the entrance. Of course, he will be moving this bill, and resumption of debate on it will continue after it was interrupted yesterday in the afternoon sitting. And the amendments that have been proposed in this particular bill, there's an insertion of a new section, that is Section 27A. This one speaks on the rights, or the right that an employee has to disconnect from their employer. This particular section has around 9-10 subsections, but subsection 2 indicates that an employer shall, for the purposes of subsection 1, which is that an employee has the right to disconnect from their employer, put in place a policy regarding the circumstances under which an employer may contact an employee during out-of-work hours, use of electronic devices to send or receive information messages or any digital work-related communication during out-of-work hours, and circumstances under which the right to disconnect may be waived. The proposals in this particular amendment also indicate that the policies that will have been adopted or put in place by the employer shall specify the nature of compensation for employees who work during out-of-work hours. That is the leader of the minority party, Honorable Opiyo Wandayi, also walking into the chambers. Subsection 3 indicates that where an employer has employed more than 10 employees, such employer shall, in formulating a policy under subsection 2, consult the respective employees, where applicable, trade union. Also, other recommendations include the right to disconnect shall be subject to the terms and conditions specified under Section 10. Section 10 indicates that out-of-work hours means hours other than the hours of work agreed upon between an employer and an employee in the contract of employment. Also, the right to disconnect means an employee's entitlement not to be contacted by the employer during out-of-work hours as per the employer's policy. So these are just but a few of the amendments that are proposed in this new section, Section 27A. That a debate, remember, on this particular bill already took place on the floor of the House, but there are more members to participate in it. Therefore, debate will be resuming in this afternoon sitting after it was interrupted in yesterday's afternoon sitting. The Sergeant at Arms are keeping tabs with the numbers of the members who are in the chambers. Once they get to 50 or more, then they will be alerting the Speaker, of course, to call the House to order. Chief Majority Whip, that is Honorable Silvanus Osoro, engaging members there on the number and trying to see whether he can whip more members who may be within the precincts but yet to get to the chambers. Once the number is achieved, we will be handing you over back. Yeah, that is the signal that has been the tradition for the National Assembly. There, the quorum has been achieved. Allow me to hand you over back to this live broadcast. My name is Kamche Menza. Good afternoon.
Order number 1, administration of oath. Order number 2, communication from the chair. Order number 3, messages. Order number 4, petitions.
Honorable members, Article 119 of the Constitution accords any person the right to petition Parliament to consider any matter within its authority. Further, Standing Order 2252B requires the Speaker to report to the House any petition other than those presented by a member. In this regard, honorable members, I wish to report to the House that my office has received a petition from one Honorable Boniface Gatobu of P.O. Box 18812-00100, Nairobi, on behalf of Shining Hope for Communities, SHOFCO, a non-governmental organization that supports poor communities living in urban and rural areas regarding the enactment of legislation on irrigation infrastructure. The petitioner states that according to the Kenya Economic Survey of 2022 by the Kenya National Bureau of Statistics, the agricultural sector contributed 22.4% of Kenya's gross domestic product, GDP. The petitioner further states that the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto appreciated the significance of the agricultural sector and has committed to inject Kenya shillings 250 billion over the next 5 years to boost the sector. In addition, he notes that the two-thirds of Kenya's land mass requires irrigation, but only 40%, but only 4% is actually irrigated. The petitioner notes that to address the above stated problem, the government proposes shifting focus from large dams to household community water projects, with emphasis on harvesting and recycling. Honorable members, the petitioner thus prays that this House intervenes to amend the Irrigation Act number 14 of 2019, the Kenya Roads Boards Act number 7 of 1999, and the Road Maintenance Levy Fund Act number 9 of 1993, with a view to A, changing the Road Maintenance Levy Fund to Infrastructure Development and Maintenance Levy Fund, and provide that part of the fund shall be employed to develop irrigation infrastructure in all parts of Kenya. And B, providing that the National Irrigation Authority shall be allocated funds from the Infrastructure Development and Maintenance Levy Fund, which shall be allocated equally to all 290 constituencies to fund undeveloped various irrigation projects in the country. Honorable members, having established that the matter raised in the petition is well within the authority of the House, and further that the matters raised in the petition are not pending before any court of law, constitutional body, or legal body, I hereby submit the petition to the Public Petitions Committee for consideration pursuant to Standing Order number 208A. The committee is required to consider the petition and report its findings to the House and to the petitioner in accordance with Standing Order 2272. I thank you, and signed by the substantive speaker, the Right Honorable Dr. Moses Wetangula. Okay, before I allow a few members to weigh in, allow me to welcome students from Kinjo Girls Secondary School from Central Imenti constituency, Mary County. And they are seated in the speaker's gallery. I'd also like to welcome students from Rukanga Secondary School, Mwea constituency from Kirinyaga County. And I think I'll give an opportunity to the Honorable Mary Maingi, member for Mwea, and the Honorable Moses Kirima, member for Central Imenti, to welcome the two schools on behalf of the National Assembly. Thank you. Then I'll allow you to comment on the petition. Let's allow the members to welcome the schools present.
Thank you, Madam Speaker, for allowing me this chance to welcome students of Rukanga Secondary School to this honorable house. I hope after touring this house, some of you will return as members of parliament, and I hope you are going to work hard on your studies and aspire to return to this house as members of parliament. I wish you success in your studies, and I wish you the best in every move that you make in your lives, and a safe journey back home. I thank you, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Moses Kirima.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Speaker. First and foremost, I take this opportunity to welcome the students from Kenjo High School, Kenjo Girls School, to the National Assembly. At the same time, inform this honorable assembly that Kenjo Girls is one of the great girls, best girls school in Central Imenti. It's a good school. It's a school which has been doing well in the constituency, and it has made the people of Central Imenti proud. And it's a very disciplined girls school. I congratulate the school for its performance in the last examination, as well as the principal of the school has really made the whole constituency proud. We wish them well, and as they travel back home, we wish them a journey masses, because as I have read just now, breaking news, on that road of ours, Meru, Nairobi Road, there has been a terrible accident involving students who are going for Minditam, and I wish the ones who are with us today good and mercy, what we call God guidance safari as they go back home. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
I think I'll also just allow one last person, the Honorable Dorothy Kiara, nominated member, as I know that's your home village.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I also wish to join a member for Central Imenti, Honorable Moses Kirima, and all the members seated here this afternoon to welcome the students from Kenjo Girls, which is a prestigious school in Central Imenti constituency, and all the students who are in this chamber this afternoon, both in the speaker's gallery and public gallery. Please feel you are in a house of honor, and we want to take this opportunity to tell you to work extra hard so that one day, one time, God willing, you also be seated here as members of this honorable house. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Honorable Leader of Minority, Member for Ugunja, I know you wanted to weigh in on the petition.
Yes, petition. Even though I also welcome the students to the August House. Honorable Speaker, the petition that you've just read and which has been signed off by Honorable Gatobu. Gatobu was once a member here, by the way, in the 11th Parliament. We served with him, if I'm not wrong. He used to be the MP for Buri. And he has since been very active in SHOFCO. That organization is shortened as SHOFCO. It's an organization which is well known, especially to urban dwellers who live in those informal settlements and other rural settlements where the poor inhabit. The SHOFCO has done a tremendous work in terms of alleviating the suffering of those who are not well endowed. When we sat at National Dialogue Committee, SHOFCO is one of those organizations that came before us with very, very progressive recommendations. And it's therefore against this background that I wish to support that petition. And in fact, agree with them that the legislation they are calling for is timely. In fact, it is overdue, if I may say so. It's overdue because we need a legal framework where such organizations can be able to operate freely to help our people. In this part of the world, governments cannot do everything. Governments struggle even to provide basic services. And therefore, we must encourage and support those private entities that have come out voluntarily to support the poor Kenyans, the poor citizens. And therefore, Madam Speaker, that petition is very timely. And I wish the relevant committee would expedite its processing for us to have a way forward. Thank you very much, Madam Speaker.
The Honorable Emmanuel Wangwe, member for Navakolo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I wish also to join my colleague, the leader of minority, that indeed the petition is timely, but I would want to support it with some proposals that as the committee looks into it, let it not just look at the issues of raising the revenues from the roads board alone, because roads board alone might not be good enough to offer the kind of irrigation schemes that might be required in the whole country. And also consider, Honorable Speaker, that we also have some shareable position, the way it has been suggested, as being equal, could also not apply for places where we have urban setups. So that, Honorable Speaker, we support the petition, but also make proposals that let it be considered across the entire country. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I support.
The Honorable Leader of Majority.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. And in principle, I support the petition, but vehemently oppose the mode proposed by the Honorable Gatobu, who is a former member of this House. Because the Honorable Gatobu in his petition is proposing the unthinkable. And the unthinkable is what governors imagined just a few weeks ago that could happen. That you can change the road maintenance levy fund to an infrastructure development fund, a maintenance levy fund, and take money designated from motorists for maintenance of roads to now go and irrigate our farms. The question of irrigation is noble, and I completely support the petition in terms of government being able to allocate more monies to irrigation. But in terms of how to raise the money, I think if the Honorable Gatobu, and I know he was running for some seat in Meru County on a Jubilee ticket, so he may not have had time to interact with the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. And therefore, he may not be aware that in the Kenya Kwanza manifesto, what was proposed in terms of irrigation is to finance irrigation projects through the public-private partnerships. And therefore, I will urge the Committee on Petitions, or whichever committee, Honorable Speaker, you will designate this petition to, that they consider the Kenya Kwanza Manifesto's proposal for public-private partnerships in the funding of especially the huge infrastructural developments in irrigation. But the roads maintenance levy, Honorable Speaker, we must tell everybody from governors to the Honorable Gatobu, to any other person with the imagination or the thought that you can touch the road maintenance levy, that is a no-go zone area. And nobody should even imagine that you can touch that levy. We have invested massively in road infrastructure in this country, and you know in the last 10 years we invested in what were called the low-volume seal roads. Those roads without a maintenance fund to maintain those roads, in another 5 years there will be no roads. And that is why we must never allow anybody, and I say anybody, including those governors who had dreams that they could touch this money. This money is designated, if anything, it is being levied on motorists. The best that the Honorable Gatobu would have proposed is part of this fund to go towards drainage infrastructure for roads, directing that water to irrigation projects somewhere, to small dams. But you cannot touch the road maintenance levy fund. No way. That we shall not allow, Honorable Speaker. And I say that we shall not allow. And I know I have 100% support from all these members that in terms of the road maintenance levy fund is a no-go zone area. I rest my case, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. I think the last person I'll give, I know members have a lot to say on this. I'll give Honorable Member for Mombasa County, Zamzam Chimba. Oh, you didn't?
No, actually, Honorable Speaker, the leader of majority has cleared everything. I do not support that petition. No one should touch any fund that comes to the MPs. Some of us don't have farms. We don't have. As much as I'm not in the constituency, I'm in a county level, that is Ngaf, but again, I have to protect my colleagues. The money, the funds that are meant to be used for the roads, let it remain there, Honorable Speaker. Thank you.
Thank you. I think we can move to the next order. We'll have a chance to ventilate at the Petitions Committee.
Order number 5, papers.
Majority Leader. There's papers. I think he's very consumed with the petition.
Yes. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, February 29, 2024. Annual reports and audited financial statement for the year 2022-2023 for the Teacher Services Commission. Number 2, reports of the Auditor General and financial statement for the year ended 30th June 2023 and the certificates therein in respect of A, State Department for Correctional Services, B, State Department for Trade, C, State Department for Higher Education and Research, D, State Department for Technical Vocational Education and Training, E, State Department for Interior and Citizen Services, F, State Department for Foreign Affairs, G, State Department for Post-Training and Skills Development, H, State Department for Social Protection and Senior Citizen Affairs, I, State Department for Crop Development, J, State Department for Early Learning and Basic Education, K, Receiver of Revenue Statement, State Department for Mining, L, State Offices House Mortgage Scheme Fund, State Department for Housing and Urban Development, M, Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission for Start Mortgage and Car Loan Scheme, N, Office of the Controller of Budget Staff Mortgage Scheme, O, National Land Commission Housing Scheme Fund, P, Office of the Controller of Budget, Q, Northeastern National Polytechnic, R, the Executive Office of the Deputy President, S, National Security Telecommunication Services, T, Veterinary Services Development Fund, U, Ministry of Health, V. Coffee Cherry Advanced Revolving Fund, W. National Cohesion and Integration Commission, X. Ministry of Foreign Affairs, Y. Kenya Space Agency, and Z. Government Clearing Agency Fund. Thank you, Madam Speaker, and I lay.
Thank you. The next is the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure.
Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following papers on the table of the House today, Thursday, 29 September 2024. Report of the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure on 1. It's the consideration of the National Transport and Safety Authority Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 36 of 2023. 2. Attendance to the International Civil Aviation Organization, ICAO, Implementation Support Symposium 2023, conference held from 30th May to 1st June 2023 in Seoul, South Korea. And 3, a study visit to France from 18th to 22nd June 2023. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next, I think there's a paper by the chairperson for the Public Debt Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to lay the following paper on the table of the House. Today, Thursday, 29th February 2024. Report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the 2024 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Next order.
Order number 6, notices of motion.
And the chairperson for the Public Debt Committee.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that this House adopts the report of the Public Debt and Privatization Committee on its consideration of the 2024 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy, laid on the table of the House on Thursday, 29th of February 2024, and pursuant to the provisions of Section 15(4) of the Public Finance Management Act 2012 and Standing Order 232A, Section 7 and 8. A, approve the 2024 Medium-Term Debt Management Strategy, and B, makes the policy and financial resolutions contained in the report. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Member for Alego Usonga, Honorable Atandi.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I beg to give notice of the following motion, that aware that the Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuff Act 2015 provides for the regulation of fertilizer importation in the country, further aware that the Fertilizer and Animal Foodstuffs Board regulates the fertilizer and animal foodstuffs industry, including the manufacture and production of fertilizers, noting that the country currently relies heavily on imported fertilizer due to inadequate local production capacity, further noting that the low production leads to high costs for farmers, reducing their profits, and results in unhealthy reliance on imported fertilizer. Concerned that this scenario threatens the country's food security in case of supply disruptions and discourages local production, recognizing that local fertilizer production could lead to improved fertilizer quality, increased crop yields, and a reduction in environmental harm caused by the use of substandard fertilizers. Recalling that the country has the potential to produce fertilizer that could meet the country's domestic demand and also supply the regional market. Further recognizing that there is need for the government to work with local producers to develop high-quality fertilizer tailored to the needs of Kenyan farmers and crops. Now, therefore, this House resolves that the national government, through the Ministry of Agriculture and Livestock Product Development, supports and promotes local fertilizer manufacturing industries by investing in research and development to bolster the domestic fertilizer manufacturing sector. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
the next order, allow me to recognize the presence of the following schools in the public gallery. 1, Mirira Secondary School from Kiharu constituency, Muranga County. And St. Joseph's, the Waka High School, Mangu, from Gatundu North constituency, Kiambu County. And on behalf of the Right Honorable Speaker, myself and the members of the National Assembly, I welcome you to the National Assembly. Thank you. Next order.
Order number 7, questions and statements.
And at this juncture, honorable members, allow me to reorder the order of the questions and statements, and I will start with the Honorable Omboko Milema, member for Emuhaya constituency.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I beg to request for a statement regarding the delay in establishment of the Board of Trustees of the Public Service Superannuation Scheme, also known as PSSS. Honorable Speaker, pursuant provisions of Standing Order 44-2C, I rise to request for a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning regarding the delay in establishment of the Board of Trustees of the Public Service Superannuation Scheme, PSSS. Honorable Speaker, the Public Service Superannuation Scheme, PSSS, is established by the Public Service Superannuation Scheme Act 2012. The scheme is operated and managed by a Board of Trustees composed of 6 persons and 3 appointed by the Cabinet Secretary for National Treasury and Economic Planning, and 3 other persons nominated by the Kenya National Union of Teachers, Kenya National Union of Post-Primary Education Teachers, KUPPET, and the Union of Civil Servants in accordance with Section 10(1)(g) of the Public Service Superannuation Scheme Act 2012. The Board of Trustees ensures that every member of the scheme receives their retirement benefits as and when they are due. Honorable Speaker, the tenure of the current Board of the Trustees expired on December 1, 2022, which triggered fresh nomination as per Section 13(1) of the Public Service Superannuation Scheme PSS Act 2012. However, until now, the Cabinet Secretary has not nominated the trustees with respect to Section 10(1)(g), despite the submission of the names by KUPPET, NAT, and Kenya Civil Service Union. Additionally, Honorable Speaker, over 156 retired teachers and civil servants have not received their retirement benefits under Section 28 of the PSS Act 2012 due to the absence of a new Board of Trustees to administer the fund. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the Chairperson Departmental Committee on Finance and National Planning on the following. Why has it taken inordinately long for the nominees submitted by KUPPET, NAT, and Kenya Civil Servants to be nominated to the Board of Trustees in accordance with Section 10(1)(g) of the Public Service Superannuation Act? 2, when can the retired teachers and civil servants expect to receive their retirement benefits? 3, could the minister provide a report on the status of the money belonging to the civil servants and teachers between December 1, 2022 and now, including the remunerations for the PSS Secretariat? Honorable Speaker, I would wish to add that this is the biggest pension scheme in the country currently, with over 140 billion raised in less than 4 years. That some employees in this particular scheme, Honorable Speaker, are earning as high as 13 million Kenya shillings per month. Honorable Speaker, I also add that the PS Treasury wrote to the organization, so said, to instead of nominating one person, asking them to nominate 3, so that he may be the one to choose among the long list, when the Act says the organization should nominate only one. And therefore, he wants to micromanage the oversighting trustees from these particular organizations. And lastly, Honorable Speaker, I would wish to indicate that we should be wary and protect this scheme jealously, because we know what happened with the NSSF because of the monies they were holding. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The Honorable Member for Kitutu Masaba, Honorable Clive Gisairo.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise to request a statement regarding demise of a police officer while on duty outside the country. Honorable Speaker, pursuant to Standing Order 44-2C, I wish to request a statement from the Chairperson, Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security regarding the delayed release of the autopsy report of the late Inspector Walter Nyakea Nyamato, force number 200-8070-300, who was found dead in his hotel room in Washington, USA on 13th February 2024. Honorable Speaker, the late Inspector Walter Nyakea Nyamato is claimed to have been part of an advance team of officers from the National Police Service that had headed to the Republic of Haiti for a reconnaissance mission ahead of the deployment of Kenya Police to the multinational security support mission in Haiti, to which Kenya is a party. Unfortunately, the officer was found dead in his hotel room in the morning of Tuesday, 13th February 2024, and the cause of his death remains unknown until today. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request a statement from the Chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Administration and National Security on the following. 1. Under what circumstances did the National Police Service dispatch officers from the Kenya Police Service, including the late Inspector Walter Nyamato, to the Republic of Haiti despite a High Court order barring the government from deploying Kenyan police officers to the said nation? 2. Why has it taken inordinately long for the autopsy report on the death of the late Inspector Walter Nyamato to be provided to the family? 3. When should the family expect to receive the autopsy report and have the body of their loved one repatriated for a decent send-off, and in order to find a closure on the loss of their loved one? Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Yes, before I allow you, Leader of Minority, to weigh in on this, allow me to invite, to welcome the students from Mount Kenya University students, Parklands campus from Starehe constituency, Nairobi County, who are invited here by Honorable Rueda. You will have a chance to welcome them after the Leader of Minority.
Honorable Speaker, thank you very much for indulging me. The statement that has been sought by the very able member for Kitutu Masaba, my good friend Clive Gisairo, raises a number of weighty issues, very weighty issues. First and foremost, Honorable Speaker, it is now close to 1 month or thereabouts since this officer was reported to have died in Washington, D.C. Since his death, there have been conflicting statements. A statement from the police was suggesting that this officer had gone for some training in the US, whilst a statement from the family of this deceased officer was clear, was categorical that this officer was part of a mission that had been sent to Haiti. Now the family is helpless. 4 weeks down the road, they have not been told what killed their kin. They have not been told when to expect the body of their kin. But more fundamentally, if indeed it is true that this officer was part of a mission to Haiti, who authorized that mission? In the clear face of a court order that any police mission to Haiti remains unconstitutional until certain conditions are met under the law and the Constitution. Can I therefore ask that the chairman of the relevant committee compels the concerned cabinet secretary to come forth and tell the whole country, in addition to the family, as to how this helpless officer found himself thousands of miles away and was allowed to die a solitary death in a foreign land on a mission which remains unclear to date. Is this how we treat our police officers? That once we use them, we send them to some unknown missions, they die there, and then you remain quiet. And the family is crying, is agonizing. Madam Speaker, Honorable Speaker, sorry, Mr. Speaker, sir, this is a very, very, very serious matter. And in fact, I would have suggested in a ruling after this, that this question be treated differently. That you compel the cabinet secretary responsible for the police to come here and explain to this house how this officer, and an officer who is just struggling with life from the great land of Omogusi. Why are you mistreating officers?
Yes, Honourable Member.
From the land of Omogusi.
What is your point of order? Minority Leader, just take your seat. There's a point of order.
The point of order, Mr. Speaker, sir, understanding order number 1, is that ordinarily this House does not entertain comments on statements. The reason being, it's at the risk of trying to even preempt the answers we're likely to get, and also it tends to lead one towards making political statements that may be unsubstantiated. So the practice of the House is a statement is made, then a response is given, then you can make a comment at that time. But the trajectory the Leader of Minority is taking is actually not the trajectory of the House.
Thank you for that. Leader of Minority, it was expected you make a very short comment on this because ordinarily, like you has put it, we don't debate statements. So please conclude.
Actually, I was indulged in a special way by the Honorable Speaker. So Honorable Murugara, relax, relax. You know, when dry bones are mentioned, all women feel jittery. That is according to Chinua Achebe. I don't know what is itching Honorable Murugara. When a son of the Omogusi is dead, far away in the US, and nobody is telling the family what killed him or what took him to the USA.
So you will need to conclude.
So with those very many,
so that we don't encourage a lot of debate on this. What's your point of order, Leader of Majority?
No, Honorable Speaker, we are a house of records. Honorable Speaker, I just took liberty to have a glimpse at the statement sought by the Honorable Clive. Now, I want to agree with the Honorable Murugara that indeed we should not take advantage of such an unfortunate incident as a passing on of an officer who has diligently served our country, an officer who is a father to a very young family. Because this officer, I think, was about 37 or 38 years old only. Served this country diligently and served to rise to the point of being a personal assistant to the Deputy Inspector General in charge of the Administration Police, the Officer Gabo. Honorable Speaker, this statement, as much as it was approved, is laden with very dangerous innuendos, all designed to do what you have seen the Leader of Minority do, use it as an opportunity to issue out unfortunate and very otherwise irresponsible political statements. Because when somebody claims...
He is on a point of order.
When somebody claims, Honorable Speaker, and if you read the statement, the Honorable Clive, and I want to believe, I hope that the late Walter Nyamato was his constituent, and allow me, because they didn't even have the decency to convey condolences to the family of the late Walter Nyamato, to first take this opportunity on behalf of the National Assembly and the great people of Kenya who are being served by Officer Walter Nyamato, to express our heartfelt and sincere condolences to the family of the late Nyamato. Honorable Speaker, this statement avers
Leader,
that the Inspector Walter Nyamato...
Honorable Leader of Majority, you will have to conclude in a short while, but I'll still give you the microphone so that we don't exacerbate debate on this statement. But proceed then for 1 minute.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I was saying the statement averred that the National Police Service dispatched officers, including and Haiti, and probably, I know they may not have the geography of the world, but at least the leader of minority, I have been to Washington, D.C. with him. I know he knows where Washington, D.C. is. The Honorable Clive might never have been to Washington, and therefore might imagine Washington, D.C. in the United States and Haiti are one and the same place. And imagine it's a village in Nyamira. It is not.
He is on a point of
So,
order.
Honorable
Please
Speaker,
conclude, leader.
I just wanted you to direct that the leader of minority and the Honorable Clive must not take advantage of the unfortunate passing on of a diligent and committed patriotic officer of our country to play very cheap politics, dancing on the graves of a dead officer. It's unfortunate and sad, Honorable Speaker.
Very
and
well.
I hope they...
Thank you. Like the substantive speaker would put it, let the chips lie where they fell. And therefore, that statement be directed to the relevant committee, and we shall have a chance to speak on it when it's back to the House. Next is a statement by the Honorable Eric Muchangi, MP. Eric Muchangi.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44, subsection 2, Part C.
Order the students of Alliance, please. Order. Proceed, Honorable Muchangi.
Thank you.
Proceed.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order number 44, 2C, I wish to request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry, and Cooperatives regarding the delay in remunerating dairy and coffee farmers in Embu County. Honorable Speaker, it is regrettable to note that for 2 consecutive harvest seasons, farmers have diligently delivered their coffee produce to the new Kenya Planters Cooperative Union, and dairy farmers have supplied milk to the new Kenya Cooperative Creameries Limited without receiving rightful compensation in return. Honorable Speaker, it is important to highlight that the government had pledged to prompt payment to coffee farmers at the rate of 80 shillings per kilogram of cherry delivered to the new Kenya Planters Cooperative Union. The delay in payment to the dairy farmers has created an environment where farmers are unable to procure essential resources for their farms or provide proper feed for their livestock, resulting in a decline in production in the dairy sector. It is imperative to note that the first supplementary budget for the financial year 2022-2023 passed in this House allocated monies to the Coffee Cherry Advance Revolving Fund, but the funds are yet to be disbursed. Honorable Speaker, it is against this background that I request for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Trade, Industry and Cooperatives on the following. 1. What immediate measures are being enacted to ensure the expedited disbursement of payments to both the coffee farmers and dairy farmers and ensure that future payments are prompt? 2. How does the ministry plan to fulfill its commitment to granting coffee farmers access to the promised 80 shillings per kilogram of cherry, given the allocation provided in the budget? 3. What are the cooperatives reforms being implemented by the ministry to ensure that cooperatives genuinely serve the best interests of our farmers? Honorable Speaker, I make this statement as a leader who comes from an area where we have very many coffee growers. And if there is a lot that is unhappy, is the farmers who do coffee, the farmers who do dairy. Because this is actually, this April, we will go to the third season, and shockingly, our farmers have not been paid for the first season and the second season. Honorable Speaker, this doesn't amuse our people. Additionally, if there is a ministry that has disappointed our farmers, it is the Ministry of Cooperatives. You can imagine, Honorable Speaker, in the month of January, the dairy farmers delivered their milk to new KCC. And we are now going to March, and they have not yet received their money. And you expect that a cow will give out milk after feeding on dairy meal. Where do they get the money to buy dairy meal? If they don't have money from the coffee, if they don't have money from the dairy, where are these farmers? Honorable Speaker, as I make this statement, I would passionately appeal to you to call upon this committee to ensure that our farmers, especially in Embu County and Runyenjes constituency, where I serve, that our farmers get their dues because they have worked hard for it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you. The statement is referred to the Committee of Trade, Industry and Cooperatives. The next statement is from the Honorable Meli, Chair Education.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, I rise to respond to a question which was raised by Honorable Undo, and through the direction of the substantive speaker yesterday, he directed that this response be brought up this afternoon because it is a matter of national concern. And Honorable Speaker, I also want to point out that the CS was in the House yesterday, and he discussed some of the issues bedeviling the e-citizen payment affecting the COOP students. Honorable Speaker, I have a response from the Cabinet Secretary on the issue, on the status of the placement circle application to universities and colleges. Honorable Speaker, I will allow me to read because this is a statement from the CS. The Kenya Universities and Colleges Central Placement Service, COOPS, opened its platform on portal on February 7, 2024 for the 2023 Kenya Certificate of Secondary Education class and other eligible persons to apply for placements to various programs in universities and colleges. The program levels are degree, diploma, level 6, certificate level 5, artisan level 4, and level 3. COOPS undertook the status of the application. Honorable Speaker, you will allow me to skip that section because I will hand over the document to Honorable Undo. But let me go straight away to the challenges faced by students and how the government has, or the ministry has tried to rectify them. The challenges are that a key challenge has been the delays in the payment submission process. COOPS has isolated the payment platform as a cause of intermittent services because of the following reasons. The cause of the delay is as follows. One, lack of completely real-time push of payment notification from the PESA flow to the COOPS database to enable the applicants complete the application. The result is a deadlock at the payment point, thus having a ripple effect on the other stage, such as inputting program code. And that has been a real problem for the delay. Two, errors in payment notification on PESA flow side. Some users have reported errors such as unusual payment amounts, for example, Kenya shillings 20, and non-beneficiaries from the COOPS. There is also a case where someone was prompted to pay US dollars 403. The remedials taken, Honorable Speaker, are as follows. To address the challenges experienced by the applicants with regard to payments, the following remedial actions have been undertaken. One, joint technical team. A joint technical team led by the Principal Secretary, State Department of ICT, Digital Economy, was constituted to identify the problems and continuously monitor the process and intervene as may be necessary. The team has representation from COOPS, Consa Technopolis Development Authority, the ICT Authority, the Directorate of eCitizen, and the Ministry of Information, Communication, and Digital Economy. Two, review of the resources. The joint technical team undertook a review a thorough review of the resources allocated to the application system. KUPS internet bandwidth was doubled to ensure maximum speeds. It was also recommended that KUPS placement application be hosted at Consa Technopolis to scale up the server space. 3, unlocking delayed payment. eCitizen was to provide the file of all the payments made for KUPS services to enable the unlocking of the yet-to-be validated payments. On 26th of April 2024, KUPS unlocked 4,286 payment transactions that has been made via the eCitizen platform. So, and the last one, and the last remedy, Honorable Speaker, is provision of self-service code, and the self-service code is USSD code *22# that applicants can use to confirm or push their payments to effect on the platform. The same has been communicated to the public. Honorable Speaker, the CS actually dealt into this yesterday, but as directed by you, the Speaker, I have actually brought this particular statement to the House. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Thank you for timely bringing the statement to the House. Yes, Honorable Member, you want to weigh in on this?
Okay.
You have the microphone.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I want to thank the Chair for Education for that statement on challenges the students are undergoing in terms of applying for university allocations through KUPS. My only problem as an expert in IT with over 15 years of experience dealing with online application, I think it is a bit in this era and age of digital technology that we create a system without actually testing on the issue of bandwidth and on the issue of connectivity and the number of users, say that when it is rolled. I've had a chance that I also have a student who is supposed to apply through KUPS to join first year. We have tried, even waking up at midnight, waking up at 4 a.m., for purposes of trying to apply, but it has been difficult. So I am wondering if we are in Nairobi and we cannot be able to apply, then for somebody who is in Turkana or in Mandera, you can see the challenges that we have. I think we need to get serious. The technologies are there. We have had even the inventions up to now. We have even cloud computing that can actually facilitate in terms of giving us the entire bandwidth and the entire servers that we need so that the students can be able to apply. So I believe this house needs to be assured that from today, the students should be able to apply for the courses online without further delay, and the time that is expected for that application to be made should not last more than 10 minutes. And we should save the students from waking up at midnight, waking up at 4 a.m. to see whether there is a space where they can be able to apply. So it is a pity to the IT industry, it is a pity to the IT professional like me when we create a system and we roll out a system without proper testing. So I believe this house needs the assurance that we can now tell our students to be able to apply, and they will be able to apply without any challenges, and the system should be seamless. Thank you.
KJ.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I appreciate this opportunity. And it is to first appreciate the Honorable Melly and the Committee of Education for expeditiously answering to an issue that is of national concern. And Mr. Speaker, we've got to identify that there are two issues here. One that squarely falls on the administration in the ministry, and the second one that is purely a systems issue. that has to do with technologies and teething problems in a technology. And Mr. Speaker, what is necessary is for the ministry to be extremely forthright, because systems are just like infrastructural installations. For example, a road can only take up so much traffic at any given time. That is the same with bandwidth. If you have a conduit or a channel that is digital, it is only able to carry so much traffic at any given time. So if systems are clouded, if systems are clustered, if systems are jammed, the ministry just needs to admit that there is a capacity issue, and that capacity issue can be addressed technically. But Mr. Speaker, I also wanted to ride on the statement that has been presented so that I can bring up the issue that is also facing COOPs, but is also an issue facing lower cadres of education, secondary school and primary school. And it also has a technological element to it. The Honorable Chairman is aware that our students are normally recorded on NEMIS. And for you to be onboarded onto NEMIS, you are required to have a birth certificate and registered at school. But Mr. Speaker, yourself and all of us in this house know that we've got families upon families that have never collected their birth certificates. So the bigger question here is, because when we are appropriating money in this parliament, we normally take the entire student component. We've got to know, when we allocate this money, where does the money for capitation that goes, that is allocated to children who do not have their birth certificates and are not registered at NEMIS, where does this money go? Because the ministry claims the full component of the money. However, they will only dispatch capitation to the children who are onboarded onto the NEMIS platform. And you might go to schools where you might find 3/4 of the students, over half of the student component is not onboarded onto NEMIS. So when we give the full monies to the ministry, where does the remainder of the money that is allocated to children who are not registered on NEMIS go? Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker, and I think that's a question that we, as the budgeting house, should get an answer to.
I think we can conclude in this and then move to the next statement, and this is by the Chair Transport. Chairman Transport, you have a reply to a request of a statement by a member for Kajiado.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 7th December 2023.
Is the member in the House?
Yes, yes.
Very well, proceed.
Honorable Speaker, on Thursday, 7th December 2023, the member for Kajiado North, the Honorable Onesmus Gogoyo MP, requested for a statement from the chairperson of the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure regarding the status of launched road projects in Kajiado North constituency. Honorable Speaker, just to give a background of the matter, the Honorable Gogoyo in the request indicated that on 23rd April 2023, His Excellency, the President, launched a road project traversing Kajiado North and Kajiado West constituencies that had stalled during previous regime for upgrading to bitumen standards. These projects included 1. Ongatarongai Gataka Ebubu Road, 2. Cooperative College, that's in Karen, Matasia Nkoroi Road, 3. Ongatarongai Nazareth University, Rimpa Road, and 4. JNC 58, Lewis Academy, Kahara Market Road. In the statement, the Honorable Gogoyo sought to, among other things, establish A, the status of upgrading to bitumen standards of the roads, B, the expected date of the completion of the roads, considering that most sections are now impassable, and C, measures the ministry is taking to ensure that the contractor is paid for the 40% portion of the road that has been completed. Honorable Speaker, the committee has since received a response from the Ministry of Roads and Transport, which I now wish to make. One, the ministry has clarified that the upgrading to bitumen standards of Ongata Rongai, Gataka, Ebubu, Karen, Cooperative, Matasia, Nikoroi, Ongata Rongai, Nazareth University, Rimpa, JN, C58, Lewis Academy, Kahara Market Road is 58% done. Two, this comprises 22 kilometers of tarmac achieved out of the contracted 65 kilometers of roads. The contracted project cost is about 2.7 billion, and the contractor is MS China Civil Engineering Construction Corporation. The following link roads are completed to tarmac level. A, Orkeri Gataka Road. B, Rongai Ebubu Road. C, Kwamai Chapchap Road. D, Matasia Tukindisi Road. Honorable Speaker, the project commenced on 27 June 2018 for a period of 36 months, but faced significant delays in completion due to several reasons. These include A, the need to realign a section of Kerry Gataka Road to accommodate the construction of the standard gauge railway. This led to the new design traversing through a gazetted forest, thus requiring additional approval for road construction. The Kenya Railways Corporation is at an advanced stage of obtaining the requisite approvals to allow the completion of the road. B, delay in power line relocation. There have been delays in the relocation of power lines within the road corridor for a majority of the road. The contractor has, however, worked around the poles where possible. C, pending land acquisition. Work is set to commence at the section of the road that was realigned along the Matasia Kandisi Road due to pending land acquisition following the construction of the SGR. Discussions commencing this acquisition are at an advanced stage. D, the limited road corridor in most sections has resulted in challenges in accommodating non-motorized traffic, thus causing delays in heavy populated sections of the project. E, financial constraints facing the contractor leading to challenges in undertaking the project as per the contractual timelines. Honorable Speaker, with regard to measures by the Ministry of Roads and Transport to pay the contractor for the completed works, the ministry submitted that the contractor served a notice to downscale works at the project, citing irregular payments of dues. However, the ministry states that it is actively engaging the contractor to resume full operations at the project with the undertaking that the settlement of all pending bills shall be prioritized alongside others facing similar challenges countrywide. And currently, Honorable Speaker, the outstanding amount owed to the contractor is 505 million. Number 5, additionally, the ministry has given an assurance that the road shall be completed as soon as the financial distress facing the project is resolved, noting the ongoing interventions by the government on settlement of pending bills. Bearing this in mind, the completion date will be revised in taking into account outstanding volume of work and shall be communicated accordingly. 6, Honorable Speaker, in the interim, the ministry through KERA, has put in place measures to maintain the sections affected by El Nino rains as soon as the weather permits, to ensure accessibility and mobility of the said road sections. Honorable Speaker, I would advise Honorable Gogoyo to liaise with the KERA to help identify the sections that require urgent intervention. Honorable Speaker, as I near conclusion, the committee has since received a response from the Ministry of Road. Sorry, Honorable Speaker, I need to turn next page. 7, in conclusion, the ministry states that the government is engaging with the development partners to provide alternative funding for pending bills that have accrued over the years, leading to delays or stalling of road projects. Further, the ministry envisages that these shall be finalized in good time to facilitate the completion of all affected projects, including the Ongata-Rongai to Kahara Market Road project. We note that the issues raised by Honorable Gogoyo are replicated across the country, and further noting that roads are key enablers of the economy, the Departmental Committee on Transport and Infrastructure is imploring on this Honorable House to support the request for allocation of additional funds of Kenya shillings 150 billion to the State Department for Roads in the financial year 24-25 for payment of pending bills. Additionally, the department requires an additional 258 billion in each of the next 2 financial years, that is 24-25, 25-26, to enable the Ministry of Roads and Transport to complete all ongoing road projects within 2 years, as stated in the policy BPS. Thank you, Honorable Speaker. Submit.
Very well. Before we get a rebut from the Member of Parliament, Kajiado North, let me welcome the Honorable Captain Rueda to welcome the students of Mount Kenya University if they are still in the house.
Asante Bwana Spika kunipatia nami nafasi kukaribisha Mount Kenya University Student Parklands Law Campus. Wakija na kiongozi wao Swabir. Swabir ni mwanafunzi wa kutoka Lamu Mashariki. Lamu Mashariki ni eneo watu wanasema watu hawajasoma, lakini watu wamesoma, sema tu si wengi. Nataka nichukue nafasi hii Bwana Spika, niwaambie wanafunzi wa Lamu Mashariki. Watu walikuwa wakisema anga ndio kikomo, lakini sahihi wanasema anga sio kikomo. Nafasi ziko, wakitaka kusoma wasome. Sahihi kuna basari, kuna wafadhili wengi. Mtu akisoma law na upande wa medicine, kuna wafadhili wengi wanaweza wasaidia. Na nataka nichukue pia hii nafasi niwakaribishe wanafunzi hawa, niwaambie hii bunge, hizi nafasi ni zenu. Musome kwa bidii, nyinyi ndio viongozi wa kesho, au tuseme viongozi wa leo. Hamuko mbali na nyinyi pia mtakuwa kwa bunge hii. Asanteni, kila laheri, nimefurahi sana, karibuni sana bunge. Asante.
Asante sana. So let's have the first bite on this coming from the Member of Parliament, Kajiado North.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, while I appreciate the answer from the Chair of the Committee for Transport, the answer from the CS, I have 2 issues to raise after this, and I have to say that the works quoted and the percentage is correct. I have 2 issues. Number 1, and I would wish the Chair for Transport to note this in a very serious way.
Chair Transport. Order, Chairman Transport. Call to order, Chairman Transport. A member is insisting that you listen to what he wants to say. Thank you. Proceed.
The Chair for Transport, I want him to note, one, is that the road has not stalled all the parts because of payments. The SGR passed through our constituency, through the forest, a gazetted forest, and they committed to rebuild the area that was not built by Kenya Rural Roads Authority. And thus, they went ahead to compensate Kenya Forest Service, which they have already done. So I would wish the chair to provide the exact date that the work will resume the part that was not meant to be done by KERA. And the Honorable GK, in your statement, you did not quote the exact day, because payment has been done. The contractor was waiting for payment to be done, which has already been done by the Kenya Railways for this specific road. And lastly, I want you to provide, you have mentioned that KERA is ready to do the roads that have been damaged by El Nino, but you have not, the KERA was to provide an engineer to do the assessment. Up to date, the road, because it is under construction, our normal engineer would not have gone on site. Why haven't you provided the estimates of the work that was already assessed, so that under the circumstances, one would be sure that KERA is going to engage these specific roads, especially at a time when, Chair, you know, we are on the Ngong Forest. Part of the roads have been damaged literally. And therefore, we cannot go on engaging the way it is. And as it is, I would want the Chair, in the same manner that he has provided this statement, to give and commit to this House on which exact day are these assessments going to be materialized, because they have already been done, but nothing yet on the ground.
Very well. There being no any other interest in that particular matter, I want to call upon the Chair of Transport to only speak on two issues. One, do you have the exact date for resumption of works on that road? I think that's what the Honourable Member said. And then the matter concerning assessment.
Honorable Speaker, thank you. I do not have the exact date, but we will liaise with the ministry and we will support the Honorable Member to be able to get an exact date when the contractor will resume works. Thank you.
Very well. So Honourable Member liaise with the Chair to get the exact date. And in the event you don't get the date, please report to the House accordingly. Next is the Majority Leader on your usual Thursday statement.
Thank you, Honourable Speaker. Honourable Speaker, pursuant to the provisions of Standing Order 44.2a, I rise to give the following statement on behalf of the House Business Committee, which met on Tuesday, 27 February 2024, to prioritize business for consideration during the week. With regard to business scheduled for Tuesday next week, the House is expected to consider the following bills at second reading, if not concluded today. 1, the National Disaster Risk Management Bill of 2023. 2, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2022. 3, the Petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill of 2022, and the Regional Development Authorities Bill of 2023. Additionally, Honourable Speaker, debate will also be undertaken on the following motions, some of which are listed in today's order paper, should they not be concluded. The appointment of members to the Committee of Powers and Privileges, appointment of members to the Committee on Member Services and Facilities, changes to committee membership, report on the consideration of the 2024 medium-term debt management strategy, if tabled by the committee today. 5, reports on the compliance to Article 54.2 of the Constitution regarding the employment of persons with disabilities in public institutions. And 6, report of the Auditor General on financial statements of selected state corporations. Honourable Speaker, I wish to remind the House that following the extension of time granted last week, we ought to conclude with consideration of the 2024 budget policy statement before the end of next week. As such, once the report of the Budget and Appropriations Committee on the BPS is tabled, it will be prioritized for debate in the course of the week. Honorable Speaker, in accordance with the provisions of Standing Order 42A, 5, and 6, I wish to convey that the Cabinet Secretary for Interior and National Administration is scheduled to appear before the House on the afternoon of Wednesday, 6th March 2024, to respond to the following questions. One question by private notice, number 4 of 2024, by the member for Gilgil, Honorable Martha Wangari MP, regarding the death of Jasmine Njoki in Gilgil, Nakuru County. Two questions by private notice, number 05 of 2024, by the member for Samburu North, Honorable Eli Letipila MP, regarding the status of the investigation into the death of Honorable Paul Leshimpiro, MCA of Angata Nanyekie Ward. 3, question by private notice number 006 of 2024 by the member for Luanda, Honorable CPA Dick Maungu MP, regarding the sporadic attacks in Luanda constituency. 4, question by private notice number 07 of 2024 by the member for Kirinyaga County, Honorable Jerry Maina MP, regarding illicit liquor in the country. 5, question number 271 of 2023 by the member for Laisamis, Honorable Joseph Lakuton MP, regarding births and registration offices in Laisamis and Loyangalani sub-counties. 6, question number 343 of 2023 by the member for Ruiru, Honorable Simon Kingara MP, regarding challenges in processing passports and inordinate delays in the issuance of passports. 7, question number 02 of 2024 by the member for Matungo, Honorable Oscar Peter Navulindo MP, regarding the surge in cases of livestock theft in the Western region and particularly in Matungu constituency. 8, question number 003 of 2024 by the member for Kinango, Honorable Gonzi Rai MP, regarding the deployment of the contingent of General Service Officers, GSU unit, to Kazamoyo village in Kwale County. 9, question number 05 of 2024 by the member for Bahati, Honorable Irene Joki MP, regarding the replacement of the vehicle with registration number plate GK B340J assigned to Deputy Commissioner Nakuru North Sub-County. 10, question number 037 of 2024 by the member for Isiolo South, Honorable Tubi Budi MP, regarding the issuance of identification cards to residents of northeastern and bordering regions. Number 11, question number 045 of 2024 by the member for Fafi, Honorable Yakub Farah MP, regarding actions taken by the government to enhance security in Fafi constituency. 12, question number 048 of 2024 by the member for Emuhaya, the Honorable Omboko Milemba MP, yours truly on the chair, regarding the security of non-local teachers in Mandera County. And 13, question number 050 of 2024 by the member for Kilome, Honorable Thaddeus Zambia, MP, regarding gazettement of Nzai sublocation in Makueni constituency. Honorable Speaker, in conclusion, the House Business Committee will reconvene again on Tuesday, 5th March 2024 to schedule business for the rest of the week. I now wish to lay this statement on the table of the House. Thank you.
Very well. Before we move to the next order, let me acknowledge the presence in the House of Sabasaba Secondary School of Maragua constituency, Muranga County. Do we have any honorable member for Muranga to welcome those students? Proceed.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I take this opportunity to welcome the students from Sabasamba. I know the area MP is engaged in activity at his constituency, and I wish to tell them that they can be in parliament. Sabasaba is one of the schools that is doing very well in Muranga County, and we encourage them to learn and to aim higher. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well. Next order.
Order number 8, the Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022, second reading, resumption of debate.
What's your point of order, Leader?
Honorable Speaker, sorry, indulge me. I wanted to request that we reorder business appearing as order number 9 to appear as order number 10, and order number 10 to appear as order number 9. Reason being, Honorable Speaker, I wanted these Senate bills, number 11 of 2022, the one debate is resuming, and the Senate bill number 6 of 2022 to follow each other. You know, Honorable Speaker, this morning we had a meeting with our colleagues in the Senate on bicameral relations between the two houses, and we intend to process many of their bills that are here so that we don't stand accused of what we are told that we are sitting on Senate bills. So we want to process those ones ahead of the others, Honorable Speaker, if you allow. Thank you.
Very well, Majority Leader, is so ordered because the substantive Speaker had already spoken on this, that we need to tackle the Senate bills much faster so that we don't look like a house that is delaying their business. Now, we are already on the next order, and the seconder had 8 minutes to second this bill.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. May I continue to second the bill? And Mr. Speaker, I'm seconding on rejection of the bill by the committee. Mr. Speaker, the bill is about the right to disconnect, whereby Mr. Speaker is talking about whereby you can't engage a worker after his working time. And in the explanation of the right to disconnect, it means an employee's entitlement not to be contacted by the employer during out of work hours as per the employer's policy. Mr. Speaker, as a committee, we went around the bill and we found that the bill somehow is discriminative, whereby the bill is not concerned about the employer, but is targeting mostly the employee without considering the rights for the employer. Mr. Speaker, when it talks about disconnection, it talks that the employee can only be engaged during emergency. Now, Mr. Speaker, we wondered, now, how will you be able to contact that employee if he has already disconnected from the employer? Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the bill that is explained on areas during emergency on how you can be able to contact the employee. Because immediately after work, the employee will have a right to switch off the phone. You can't contact that person. Therefore, we did not find the areas or avenues under which the employer will be able to explain that there is an emergency and they want the employee to come back and assist the employer. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, on the other issue is the bill has the areas of definitions. The bill has only 2 definitions. One definition is out of work hours, and the other one is right to disconnect. But it talks about emergency, but doesn't define what is emergency, at what instances of emergency whereby an employer can contact an employee. It talks about compensation, whereby an employer has to compensate an employee, but doesn't explain what is compensation, doesn't define compensation. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as the bill comes from the Senate, we find there was a lot of oversight. There were some basic things that they could have been included during the debate at Senate, which are very critical. There is the issue of essential services. It says that the essential services, those people working at the essential services are the people who can be allowed not to disconnect. But, Mr. Speaker, it doesn't define essential services. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we see a lot of gaps in the bill. Mr. Speaker, the bill also only targets those people who work during the day and go home. But, Mr. Speaker, the bill doesn't consider some people like the domestic workers. A domestic worker is with the employer throughout. Now, where does this connection? Because the bill now should cover all employees, should not target a few and leave the others. Now, for a domestic worker, the bill should have clearly indicated at what stage should the domestic worker disconnect from the employee and they are living in the same premises. Mr. Speaker, there is the issue of those who work 24 hours. They are always in the employment area. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we find some of the gaps. Mr. Speaker, the bill, as I said, is so biased to the employer because it talks about employee disconnecting from the employer. But the bill doesn't talk about when the employee wants to contact the employer. Is the employer mandated to pick the phone of an employee during out of work? Therefore, the bill should have also indicated when now employees usually call the employer, doesn't consider also employee usually call the employer. Therefore, we find some biasness in the bill whereby the employer is not considered at all. There are cases, Mr. Speaker, whereby he's considering the person who initiated the bill, considering the working hours. Suppose the worker or the employee had been given target to work on, and the employee fails to achieve the target. Now, the bill doesn't consider the employer, because the employer had given somebody target, but such somebody knows that is protected by the law, that when the time comes for going home, he must go home. That brings a lot of indiscipline in areas of work. Mr. Speaker, the bill, as we look at it, the current government agenda is a bottom-up transformation agenda, whereby one of the main agenda is employment. The bill says that it's targeting an employer who has more than 10 employees. Now, if I am an employer and realize that I'm about to achieve the 10th employee, then I follow in this trap whereby I cannot be able to contact my workers when they are out of work. I will make sure I will not employ the 10th employer. Therefore, it's discouraging employers from employing maybe more than 10. And Mr. Speaker, what we should be legislating under the government agenda of bottom-up transformation of creating employment, we should be encouraging legislation that will encourage the employer to employ more workers, who has 10 to employ the 11th employee. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, the committee found that the bill is discouraging those who have more than 10 employees. And we asked, what scientific calculation or something that is tangible, somebody cannot go to court, why he did not consider the person who has 2 employees, the person who has 5 employees, the person who has 8 employees, but only targeted employers who have employees from more than 10. Mr. Speaker, it creates somewhere whereby even the mover of the bill must have been trying to get away from falling on that gap. He might have looked at his institution or his work and has realized he has to go outside that bracket because there is no scientific anything explanation. Even the mover, we asked him, why didn't you think about the 2, the 3rd, the 4th, or the 5th? You went to 10. You must be having vested interest, whereby even you yourself, you don't want to fall to that gap. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, we agree that that bill, Mr. Speaker, is not encouraging on working. Mr. Speaker, as a committee, we say that the issue of employment is a civil relationship and should not be given a criminal liability. When I employ an employee, I should not be found myself maybe on issues of management in my work, whereby I can be declared criminal by contacting my employee. He says, if you contact an employee after working hours, you are liable for a fine of 500,000 or an imprisonment of 1 year. Mr. Speaker, that's an area we found is extremely biased, and as a committee, we said this bill we reject the bill, and I pray the members of this House, and I wish to request even the Senate to be a bit careful whenever they look on some of these bills, because somehow we wonder whether this bill was really discussed at length at the Senate. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I now propose the question which is that the Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022, be now read a second time. Let's have the first bite from Honorable Jackson Kosgei.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In principle, notwithstanding some gaps in this bill, and which I believe it can be treated by various laws established while and when we shall be looking into it in details, I support the bill personally for two reasons. One, employee right to disconnect helps to protect the employees against burnout hazards. Second, I support because it protects the workers against exploitation, where some organizations have used workers and mistaken loyalty to mean a right to infringe on the right of workers. Prime Minister, the current Prime Minister of Australia, Anthony Norman Albanese, said, and allow me to quote, Mr. Speaker, what we are simply saying is someone who is not being paid 24 hours a day shouldn't be penalized if they are not online and available 24 hours a day. I am sure the reason why hours have been defined, how many hours a worker should work in a week, I understand it's about 45 hours. The right to disconnect, therefore, has been said by scholars that it is an entitlement not to be contacted by employer during out-of-work hours as per the employer's policy. There must be a policy that is guiding every employment and creating a workable environment in every organization. Mr. Speaker, this encourages the right to privacy. Some people have made telephone calls being the boss, even in midnight, calling somebody's wife or husband, causing disunity in families. We need some kind of a working relations that dignifies a worker. Simply because he's working for you doesn't negate. The second thing I wish to refer, Mr. Speaker, is that in corporate governance, there is a cliche of professional distance. This is where we exercise it. Yes, no doubt, there are areas where relationship between the employer and employees are strong, well-connected, caring relationship with the people and all that work together. That one is encouraging transformational type of leadership where staff owns the organization. Then you need to have high level of motivation and several others. Mr. Speaker, in principle, I wish to support this bill, but I want to agree with the speaker that has just spoken that there are so many areas that needs to look at the gaps. With that, Mr. Speaker, I support.
The Honorable Gitonga Murungara, do you want to speak on this? Proceed.
Yes. Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I have gone through the bill as presented from the House of the Senate. I've also gone through the committee report as prepared by the Labour Committee. And having looked at this bill, the cardinal there is no way you can confer rights upon persons without corresponding obligations on them too. I am not very sure where this bill has been lifted from, but it seems to be actually in contravention of employment laws in the country, and especially bearing in mind that employment law is civil law. It is not criminal law, it is civil law. It is based on contract between two persons, an employer and an employee. There are always arguments whether this contract is at arm's length, but provided that it is supported by consideration, it is a valid contract, and the courts have held so. When you confer a right on the employee to disconnect from their employer, the next question is whether the employer has a right to disconnect from the employee. It cuts both ways, because whatever makes an employer to connect with an employee outside the working hours may be the same reason why the employee must connect with the employer outside the working hours. Therefore, one reason I oppose this bill is due to the fact that it does also not give that right to the employer to disconnect. Let's move on to the element of disconnection, which is actually criminalized by this particular act. That if anyone contravenes this section, it's liable on conviction to a fine not exceeding 500,000 shillings or imprisonment for a term of 1 year or both. First and foremost, the fine and the prison term are disproportionate. You cannot be fined 500,000, and if you fail to pay, you're in prison for 1 year. It has to be commensurate. So the number of years must be slightly more than what is provided here. Number two, this is a contract between two parties, such that one party breaches the contract. Why would the other party be taken to court, convicted, fined, or sent to prison? The remedy for civil cases, for civil breach of civil rights, is actually damages. So the employee should be entitled to an action in damages if the employer breaches this particular provision. I have seen there is an exemption on essential services which are listed under the Labor Relations Act. But essential services may not necessarily be what we know in common life. There may be a reason why an employer would want to connect with the employee outside working hours, purely to ensure that an element of the contract being executed is actually performed. Correspondingly, there may be a reason why the employee would want to connect with the employer during outside hours. For example, during time of illness, where we have to get maybe a cover to hospital, an ambulance to hospital, or whatever other aid that may be necessary. Number three, we know very well in the contracts of employment, we have working hours. These are always set out in a contract of employment. If you work outside those hours of employment, you are entitled to a payment. That payment is known as overtime, because you're working above the hours prescribed for you to work. Now, what is the problem with an employer connecting with an employee to work overtime, for which there will be commensurate remuneration? I don't see any, and this is why I oppose this particular bill. In essence, this bill goes towards breaching contracts of employment both ways. It does not help modern day market in employment as required. We know employment market has evolved over a period of time, beginning with communal African societies where there was actually no employment, all work was communal, and nobody expected any remuneration. From there, of course, we went to the ugly scene of slavery, where some human beings felt that they were entitled to labor without paying for it. Exploitation. That was allowed, and we moved to another era of master-servant relationship. This is where the employees were tormented by their employers on the basis that they were servants while their employers were masters. Today, we've moved to what we believe is almost an actual situation of labor relations, contracts between parties at arm's length. And this is where we find this law coming in to actually breach that particular relationship. And finally, which court is going to deal with breach of this particular
what's
section?
your point of order? Because
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I'm raising person to start on number 35.
wow. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I think because of the issue of the quorum, we can ask the mover to reply. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
You have not pronounced yourself clearly on the standing order that you are actually raising. So you are combining two things there.
Thank you, Mr.
Mover
Speaker.
to reply, you are also talking about quorum. What are you talking about, Honorable Member?
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker. I have just consulted with my senior here, and he has advised me to come back to that point of order later. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Very well, Honorable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, Honorable Kururia is a young legislator. He's learning how to handle the ropes, and soon he will know the distinction between the two and when they can actually be raised. But I think this is a bill that has a lot of interest, and we may debate on it slightly more before the mover is called upon to reply. Then what I was saying is the labor relations under the Labor Relations Act are governed or are enforced by our employment courts. Our employment courts are not criminal courts, they are civil courts. So if anybody breaches this particular section, which court is going to be charged with arbitrating between the parties on their rights, and especially when it comes to criminal justice? Would an aggrieved party go to the CID, the police, the DPP to complain, after which the DPP would prefer a criminal case against the offending party? That is what we ask. Or will the aggrieved party go to the Labor Relations Court, file a civil complaint for the person to be held liable and award damages? That is another question. As I conclude, Mr. Speaker, this is a bill which, in my estimation, has not been properly thought out. It is not actually in consonance with our employment laws, and it needs to actually be rejected. So I do oppose this bill entirely.
The Honorable Elachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I also rise to reject this bill. And Mr. Speaker, when I listen to the speakers that have been there,
Yes, what's your point of order?
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. I rise pursuant to Standing Order 83, as read together with Standing Order number 95. Mr. Speaker, as you have just heard, everybody who stands rejects. Would I be in order, Mr. Speaker, to request you to call upon the mover to reply, so we don't waste a lot of time with rejection, because it appears has been totally rejected, including even Honorable Elaji. She just opened her mouth and she said, I reject, before she says so. So, Mr. Speaker, I think we would be wasting our precious time without anticipating the next order. Mr. Speaker, would I be in order to request you to call upon the mover to reply? I thank you.
We have heard you, yes, but let's allow the Honorable Lachi to finish, and then I will put the question to just weigh what the House mood is like. Proceed, Honorable Lachi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, it will be good to give with reasons that, first of all, Mr. Speaker, when you go through the content of the bill and look at how we manage the laws of employment in this country and just across the world, Mr. Speaker, and the person who thought about this seems to have not looked at our Public Service Commission Act. That indeed, even when you are employing, he never even specified what cluster of employees is he talking about. Because if they are civil servants, then you can't treat them according to what he would wish. And therefore, he's either talking to a group that we have not seen working in this country or is about to come, so that you give them such regulations, knowing very well the moment you go to an interview, Mr. Speaker, and you are given now a letter of acceptance, then there are rules and regulations of that institution that you abide in as their code of conduct of work. And Mr. Speaker, I normally say there are 5 behavior models for an employee in any workplace. 1, trust. 2, you must learn how to deal with conflict, commitment, accountability, and results. Now, when he talks about time, that when you go overtime, that now the employer cannot even call you out of working hours. What about if you, as the employee, has been given an assignment, you have been so slow on your assignment, and you have to go, indeed, beyond the hours that you were employed? What happens to this person? Will he take advantage and use the same policy to take his employer to court? So, Mr. Speaker, when we look at such a bill and when we tell the Senate, and I want to tell the Senate, when you're talking of employment, it is the most sensitive thing. And that is why any lawyer who walks in court on a matter of an employee, the first thing the judge does is to give orders to that person. Then you now come and go through your case. So if they find you culpable, yes, you will go home. If not, but always you are given orders to return to work. And therefore that protection is there for any person who is employed in this country, Mr. Speaker. And therefore for them to come and now define, unless we are saying, and I'm not saying us, I look at the Senate and I want to tell them they have to be looking very critically at the work of our people who have been employed in the counties. They need a critical law just to get their pension. How I wish they can bring that in this House. They need a critical law to safeguard them in how you find a governor can just decide today, Mr. Speaker, you are not there, you won't be employed, you have been employed for 10 years, you are thrown out in 1 second. They need now to bring an employment law for county government workers that can protect them properly in the work they are doing and ensure even this overtime. Most of them do not get. So you find county assemblies are even more organized than the executive side. So how I wish that is what they can do for us, so that even those in the executive side can find themselves in a proper way and a proper contract. If I'm given a contract of 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, it does not become a political contract,
but it becomes a contract like any other person who is employed in this country. So for them to bring us this, I think it is very unfortunate, but I want to say we are not rejecting this bill, Mr. Speaker, because it is a Senate bill. We are saying you are contravening the laws of employment in the country. They are well stipulated. We have different articles that take care of that. If you want to amend, then you have to go through all those laws and then bring an amendment that is very clear, and we shall look upon it and be able to support. Lastly, Mr. Speaker, we have to also inform the Senate that when you are talking about employment, please cluster so that we understand. Are you talking about those who are on contract? Are you talking on pensionable and permanent? Are you talking about informal? Are you talking about our Adobe services? Who are you giving this law to enjoy? Because even if you ask who are the beneficiaries of this law, the civil servants, Mr. Speaker, our teachers, everyone can never be a beneficiary of this. Because if you are a teacher and you have students who are in boarding school, you already agreed with the code of conduct that I'm in a school that is a boarding school, and you can be on duty at any given time. And therefore, you will receive calls from your principal or even from above beyond to ensure that safety is taken. So as much as we would wish, Mr. Speaker, I want to say it was unfortunate for a bill like this to come here, and also unfortunate in public, when they went for public participation, I'm wondering who they went through, because some people would have also questioned, even those stakeholders who employ, they were supposed to also say a few things on this bill so that both parties can be in an agreement of how to do it. With those few remarks, Mr. Speaker, I beg to reject.
The Honorable Bernard Kitur. You know, Standing Order number 95 also depends on the prerogative of the Speaker to make a decision on the same. I've already made a decision, and therefore, Honorable Bernard Kitur, you may proceed, if you want to speak on this.
Well, Chair, Mr. Speaker, sir, I stand to reject this employment amendment bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022. And first of all, on the fact that in as far as it's important for employees to be respected by their employers, and that it's also important to have a time frame of work, because when you do have a contract between an employer and employee, it should be stipulated based on time. And as far as it's a progressive bill towards bringing in order on areas of employment, I do find that it doesn't fit the Kenyan model of saying that, for instance, you come in at 8 and by 5, you completely disconnect. You cannot be able to engage with your employer. I do not think we've reached to that point where we operate in a way that when it gets to that stipulated time, everything completely disconnects. So I don't feel that it is a practical bill in itself. And secondly, there are issues that had been raised that it helps to reduce exploitation by the employers, which wasn't very clear as such. I still want to also raise that this bill, this amendment only fits employers in the private sector, but not much those in public sector, like those working in government or teachers and such kind of jobs. So to me, I still feel it is not balanced. Also, the aspect of saying that this only applies for organizations that have more than 10 employees is also discriminative. What happens for those that have less? Therefore, I do not want to belabor much, but on the overview, I stand to reject this bill. It is a good one, it has come in, but I don't think we are in that space that we can be able to have such a very tough bill. Of course, I saw also the punitive measures that happens for those that break the law in as far as this is concerned was very punitive to the employers. So it needs to be a bit more balanced. So for me, I stand to reject. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
The Honorable Zamzam Chimba.
Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika. Na mimi niweze kusema kuwa japokuwa nia ya kuleta mswada huu ilikuwa nia nzuri, lakini tukiangalia kwa undani tunaona kuwa itawanyima wengine raha ya kufanya kazi kwa amani, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, mimi napinga marekebisho katika mswada ambao umeletwa leo kutoka katika bunge letu la Senate. Mheshimiwa Spika, wafanyakazi katika taifa hili wameangaliwa vizuri na wamewekewa kanuni na sheria na masharti na mambo yao katika katiba yetu. Ukiangalia katika kitengo cha ajira wameangaliwa vizuri sana, Mheshimiwa Spika. Na hii nikiangalia itakuwa inalemea upande mmoja na wengine watakuwa pengine kama mwajiri atakuwa amelemewa sana, Mheshimiwa Spika. Katika serikali yetu sisi tunataka mfanyakazi akiwa na furaha na mwajiri naye pia awe ana furaha na kuangalia pia kazi yake, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo Mheshimiwa Spika, haya marekebisho yalioletwa, kwa mfano hapa juzi Mombasa nimekuwa sehemu nikiangalia sheria za wafanyakazi wa EPZ, Mheshimiwa Spika, lakini tukafikia maelewano kuwa lazima wale wafanyakazi haki zao za kimsingi ziangaliwe, na vile vile pia haki ya mwajiri naye pia aweze kuangaliwa ili waweze kupata balance, kwa sababu tunataka taifa ambalo linaweza kusonga mbele kwa mwafaka uliowekwa katika katiba, Mheshimiwa Spika. Kwa hiyo katika hili mimi nitamwambia kamati ya Leba katika Senate, hili kama mama kaunti wa Mombasa nimelipinga. Lazima sheria ni msumeno ukata mbele na nyuma, tukuangalia mwajiriwa, tuangalie na anayemwajiri, Mheshimiwa Spika. Lakini hata hivyo pia walete sheria na kanuni nzuri ambazo sisi tuweza kuzipitisha hapa, kuangalia haki za wafanyakazi zinafuatiliwa sana, Mheshimiwa Spika, kwa sababu kuna watu wameangaliwa vizuri. Na mimi ujumbe wangu pia kwa wafanyakazi wa EPZ Mombasa, na nyinyi angalieni kazi yenu, tusiweze kufunga makampuni yakienda Kenya yahitaji pia kujengwa na watu kama hao. Mambo yenu yameangaliwa vizuri, na nyinyi muangalie zile target zenu, zile kazi zenu mlikuwa mmepewa kufanya, mufanye kwa uadilifu ili tuweze kuona makampuni yetu yakienda vizuri. Asante sana Mheshimiwa Spika.
The Honorable Beatrice Kimei.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for giving me this opportunity to add my voice to the bill that we have, the employment, that is Amendment Bill 2022, the Senate Bill number 11 of 2022. Honorable Speaker, I want to believe that the owner of the bill had intentions, but to me, it is not a balanced bill. It is geared more towards the employer and no much interest with the employees. In this case, I reject the bill. For one, Honorable Speaker, the relationship between the employer and the employee is very important. Relationship here in terms of the output. So when we talk of the employer should not actually, or the working hours should not exceed what is there. That is to tell us that the employer has no say when the time is over. Yet sometimes here the work that is there can go beyond the stipulated hours. And in this, it tells us that it will be very mechanical for the employee and the employer. I also want to say that it is not clear, even from this bill, when the bill talks of only in cases of emergencies, but which are these emergencies? It is not stated which is the emergency and which is not. And putting also into consideration, we have some employees who have to work beyond the working hours. For example, the teachers. What do we say about those working in boarding schools? Because they have to take care of the students all through. Does it mean when the time is over, they have to go home? Who stays with the students? Who takes care of them? Who check on their issues? So to me, this bill is not the right one, and therefore I reject, saying that they have to look at another way out. Now, I'm also asking myself, if the employee has an emergency and is at home or wherever, are they not supposed to engage the employer? That is my question. Because now, if it is only the working hours, it means even if they have an emergency too, they are not supposed to engage an employer. So this bill will not make life very easy for the employer and the employee at the same time. And therefore, in the strongest terms, I reject this bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Lilian Sioi is in the House. Being absent, next we have the Honorable Wilberforce Oundo.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. The Employment Amendment Bill, Senate Bill number 11 of 2022. Honorable Speaker, when I perused through this bill, it reminded me a similar bill that came from Senate in the last term, sponsored by the current governor of Murang'a County. And it left me wondering, Honorable Speaker, that under Article 96, and in totality on the chapter on legislation, Senate is bestowed with very heavy load to protect the interests of the county and ensure devolution works. And also reminded me that again in the Constitution, Senate participates in lawmaking and only participates fully in matters to do with revenue distribution between the two levels of government. I was perplexed, astonished, and I got apprehensive that how can a whole Senate waste valuable time to debate and pass. And Speaker, if I wasn't in Parliament, I would do what we used to do when we were at the lecture halls, what we would tell the students. But since this is Parliament, and there's some issue of parliamentary and the rest, let me just say from the onset that this bill is a bill that I reject in totality. It is something that ought not even to have been allowed to see the floor of Parliament. Yesterday, Honorable Speaker, we just told here so many times, trying to look for ways and means to ensure that valuable parliamentary time is not expended to discuss this bill. Honorable Speaker, I reject on three strong grounds. Number one, the issue of labor relationship in this country are so big, are so demanding, that the issue of conducting an employee after the so-called working hours does not rank anywhere in the order of priority. To a teacher who is teaching in Mandera, whether the deputy, whether a student calls or not, is not a priority to the teacher. To the worker industrial area is not a priority what time they can be conducted by the plant operator or the plant manager in an industry. To an unemployed person, this is not a priority in labor relationship. To an underpaid person who is hanging on the job that he has, this is not a priority. The priority is job security, priority is improved working condition, priority is better pay, priority is the ability to improve so that they can move to the next level. I would have wished an amendment to the Employment Act would have literally been directed towards that line. But directing us on mundane issues, hopelessly unproductive issues, is a terrible waste of national resources. Secondly, Honorable Speaker, I would have imagined, I'm told the sponsor of the bill is a young person, and like the old hogs like us who are here, is a young person. And I would thought the young person have weaned themselves from this retrogressive and outdated mentality that working hours are fixed working hours. We have seen the Kenya Kwanza government, even the Uhuru Kenyatta government, push towards digital economy. And we practiced during the corona time, where there are no fixed working hours. All that is required is delivery. All that is measurable is the output. Honorable Speaker, we operate consultancies. We operate other things. I never at any time request anybody whom I'm working with to be on his desk or his desk from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. All that I'm looking for is delivery of service. All that I'm looking for is the output. Many Kenyans of the youthful age are working at home, and the output and the income far much exceeds those people who slug themselves from day to evening on a desk job. Honorable Speaker, we go all over our constituencies telling our young people that the white-collar jobs are no longer there. The jobs where you go to a desk, you are given a swinging chair, there is tea in a flask with the biscuits, with the flower vase, with a telephone extension on your desk, are long gone. We are telling them, create your own time to work at your own free time to make sure you put food on the table and meet your bills. With this amendment, if it ever became a law, we would go back 10 steps, more than the 2 steps you have made, to entrench back this mentality that I must work a certain time. Honorable Speaker, it simply means, if, for example, we are here in Parliament and we have those extended working hours where we leave here at midnight or so. When you get home, when you are hungry, your house girl or your house help will not cook for you because it's beyond working hours. You will sleep yawning, and the morning you might not be able to deliver. Even when you go to bed, you might turn the bed the whole night and unable to sleep and do that appertains to sleeping. Honorable Speaker, it also means the members of Parliament who are here, you will not call your fund accounts manager beyond 5, because he will tell you, sorry, it is beyond working hours. Cheregai Bill says I should not pick your call, or he will contemptuously disconnect and atadunga, contemptuously, and you will do nothing. It means, Honorable Speaker, you will not call your doctor when you suddenly fall sick, because he will say it is beyond working hours. It means when there is an emergency, MOH will not call a nurse who is off duty to come and render services because it's off working hours, regardless that those are essential services under Section 18 of the Employment Act. It is unnecessary legislation. It's something that does not bother, should not even have found its way here. And these are some of the kind of the bills, Honorable Speaker. We should just kill them and go back to the Constitution and the standing order so that we not even have any reference to any other places. With those very few remarks, I would have wanted to take all the time to lecture on the issue of labor productivity. Kenya is said to be comparatively low labor productivity, to have a low labor productivity. You bring this kind of a bill, then all the time, tutakuwa tunapiga sherehe as from 5:15 until the second day, we do not produce. So, Honorable Speaker, I want to urge, and I must thank the committee. They were courageous enough and said, reject in totality. I oppose and say the members of the National Assembly, we have more pressing issues, we have more important issues to deal with this country. Let's reject totality, and I oppose this bill. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Very well. The Honorable Samuel Chepkonga, do you want to speak on this?
I thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the recommendation that is contained in the committee's report that is dated the 6th of December 2023. Mr. Speaker, it is very unfortunate, as I had Professor Oundo claim that this bill was sponsored in the Senate by a young person. In fact, the import of this bill as the unintended consequences of suppressing the rights of the youth. It is not even helping the youth in any way. Two, Mr. Speaker, I've gone through the report, and I'm surprised that this bill has continued from the Senate all the way to this House, when in fact the Public Service Commission rejected this bill. Two, COTU itself, Central Organization of Trade Union, rejected this bill. That represents the workers. Three, the Federation of Kenya Employers also rejected this bill. So the question that you ask is, whose interest is this bill intended to serve? It has been rejected by the employers. It has been rejected by the employees. So whose interest is this bill intended to serve? It is not intended to serve any interest at all that will further the interest of the worker in the marketplace. In fact, this bill goes against or is in contravention of the International Labour Organization Convention. Now, it goes against the international best practice. So if a bill is in contravention of the ILO, in which Kenya itself is a treaty member, and if we are a treaty member, you know that the convention has been imported pursuant to Article 2 of the Constitution, which says that all conventions in which Kenya is a signatory are laws of this country. So if it is in contravention, if it's in conflict with the ILO treaty, so this should not even be wasting our time considering something, and I should not waste a lot of my breath speaking to something that is in contravention of the Constitution itself. Anything that is unconstitutional, Mr. Speaker, should not even be entertained in this House. We should not be wasting the precious time of these members of Parliament who should be resolving matters that are of concern to the people as required by the Constitution. So the only favor that we can do to this particular proposal is to reject it in totality. And we should not waste a lot of time, and I don't want to take too much time, Mr. Speaker, and therefore I support the report of the committee to reject this bill. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
What's your point of order, Honourable Member?
My point of order was on the Honourable Odo, I think, the Daktari. He actually used unparliamentary language, but I actually wanted to contribute.
Order, member.
No, I wanted to contribute.
It was
to
overtaken
this.
by events.
No, I wanted to contribute to this particular
It
bill.
was already overtaken by events.
So can I contribute?
No, you rose on a point of order.
I rose
So-
on a point of order, but I want to contribute.
Order. Take your seat. Let's have the Honorable Onyango Koyo.
Thank you very much, Honorable Speaker, for giving me the opportunity to talk to this bill. Although I'm a member of the committee that already spoke to this bill and we rejected it, Honorable Speaker, I want to say that this bill is not going to add value to the working class or anybody who is serious in this country. Workers and employers have a CBA, something called collective bargaining agreement, in which they agree on working hours, working conditions, the salaries, and so on. And this bill is not going to cure or introduce anything a lot better. We rejected it because our communication system are still very faulty. Merciless employers would capitalize on this and send workers home anyhow, based on the fact that they have been tried to be reached or they have been invited through these gadgets and they were not able to be found. So several years after independence, we appeal that those who are serious bring to this House bills or issues that they have researched and found that they are coming to add value or they are new and they are going to drive the country forward. Senate should be very serious, and because there are so many pending issues of the county government that they need to deliberate on. And I therefore believe that, plead with my colleagues in the House of Parliament, that this bill is a bill that does not add any value, and we should not argue about it so much. We should look at it and reject it in totality, just the way as a committee we looked at it and dismissed it. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Honorable Thukukwenya.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for this opportunity to contribute to this bill from the Senate. From the onset, I want to join the chorus, so to say, in rejecting this kind of a bill. In fact, Mr. Speaker, I want in a very special way to reprimand the Senate House Business Committee for allowing such a matter to even be given precedence by the same committee to be discussed in the Senate and for forwarding the same to the National Assembly. Mr. Speaker, these are some of the bills that make Parliament look like a joke. And I have taken time even to interrogate as to who the author and the initiator of this bill is. And from a judgment, I could tell from the word go that this is a person who is in this in Parliament, either having not ever worked anywhere in any of our reputable organizations, and the reason as to why, or rather had a bad day at work, had a serious disagreement with the former employers, and the reason as to why he came up with such a bill to limit the working hours of employers in this country. You realize so much has changed, and I'm actually particularly perturbed that the author of this bill is a young person who should be well versed with the dynamics of the world today, that our economy has really changed, and actually we do not have specific working hours. The world has become a village whereby when it is morning here, it is at night elsewhere. A case study, before I joined Parliament, Mr. Speaker, I was a serious businessman. And my working hours and my staff used to work between 5 in the evening to morning, because that is when we would be in touch with our clients or our suppliers. And Mr. Speaker, looking at this bill, because I don't want to say much, I want to dismiss this kind of thinking. Actually, the writing is not even worthy the paper that is typed on, and therefore I reject and call upon the Senate Business Committee to be more serious and to interrogate the kind of bills that they are passing. It is unconstitutional ab initio, just like it has been said by the Honorable Chepkonga, and therefore does not deserve to be in this House. We have more serious matters to discuss in this House. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for the opportunity.
Yes, Honorable Ruku. Honorable Ruku. Are you contributing on this? Yes, and as you contribute on this, you must remember our standing orders, that it's not in order to reprimand the Senate for having brought this bill. Proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I rise to be contrary to what my colleagues have just said, and I respect that. I respect that. As far as this employment bill is concerned, Mr. Speaker, I rise to support the bill. I rise to support the amendment because of a number of reasons. One, it gives the employees ample time to have the personal space after working hours to enhance their social welfare, which is something which we have not been able to see. Sometimes it's neglected and it needs to be enhanced. Kenya is an economy which is growing at a very fast rate compared to other African nations. And the more we think for futuristic, the better for the employees of the Republic of Kenya. Two, Mr. Speaker, this bill protects employees from exploitation and disciplinary action if they fail to act on communications outside the agreed working hours. It is actually enhancing the freedoms and rights of employees, and they should not be taken advantage of. Number three, Mr. Speaker, the bill protects the employees' privacy from abuse and infringement by the employers. We have seen this happening again and again within our employment sector. And employees need to be protected from privacy. I mean, they need to enjoy their privacy from being abused by the employers. Number four, Mr. Speaker, this bill will enhance respect and dignity, and therefore it will enhance productivity, which in the long terms will create productivity in our economy, strengthen the economy, and it will ensure the seamless promotion of work and life balance, which is critical and important. I support this amendment. Yes, I support this amendment, Mr. Speaker, because of those four very critical reasons. Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Maybe before we give the next person to speak on this, it will be very important to order members to refer you to our standing order number 87, that it shall be 87.4.5. It shall be out of order for a member to criticize or call to question the proceedings in the Senate or the Speaker's ruling in the Senate, but any debates may be allowed on the structures and roles of the Senate in Parliament. So please be guided. Honorable Chien.
No, thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as the Honorable Ruku was contributing, I imagined the Honorable Ruku receiving a message today at 6 o'clock from his constituency manager about the death or the sickness of one of his staff in the constituency. And I wondered whether he was going to call that constituency manager back. Or, I mean, I just imagined at 10 p.m. today, the Honorable Ruku receiving information from one of his staff members that one of his campaigners is unwell was an emergency, and I imagined whether he would call that person who has sent the message back, or he would wait until those working hours, assuming we were to set them up. And so, Mr. Speaker, it's good to think about the ramifications of some of the provisions we make when we come to Parliament. Because, Mr. Speaker, I believe employment, working for, with, or under, assumes that over time, people get relationships, people get to like their jobs, people get to learn how they work. And Mr. Speaker, I don't imagine that employees or employers would be getting in touch with each other after hours, in quotes, for fun. And so much as people may have an issue with an employer calling back an employee or calling to make an inquiry or calling after hours, I believe that this is a knee-jerk reaction. I believe that this is tantamount to summoning a hammer to fight a mosquito. So, Speaker, I wish there was a way in which we could leave this to the good sense of the employers and the employees. Because the moment we say that there are times when an employer cannot or will not get in touch with an employee, what about emergency situation? What about at times when the employee himself or herself may have done something that needs to be corrected? What about circumstances where the activities of work require that they keep in touch throughout? And like the Honorable Wundu has said, in a world where nowadays people work without seeing each other, in a world where we are talking about Taptengle, you know, where someone is working in Europe for someone in Africa, or someone is working in Africa for someone in Canada, why would you try to limit, why do you want to limit these kind of interactions in case or in cases where they actually may make the work to be easier or better? So, Mr. Speaker, I believe that this bill is ill-guided. I believe that it will not improve anything in the work environment. On the contrary, it may make the people who already are working lose their jobs. I imagine a situation where someone refuses to pick the calls of their bosses or of their supervisors, and the following morning they're given a letter saying, your job is over. Where will this member be? Mr. Speaker, I think this is some of the things that we should leave to the realm of policy and work environments as they evolve, instead of legislating on matters that we cannot even supervise or enforce. Mr. Speaker, I oppose. Thank you.
The Honorable Basil, followed by the Honorable Lady Lillian.
Thank you. Thank you, Speaker. I can see my brother, Honorable Wilberforce, is smiling. He knows what I'm about to say. I think I'll join my friend, Honorable Ruku, to fully support this bill. And the reason why I support it, there's a reason why we have working hours. If we talk of 8 hours working hours, that has to be respected. We have seen a situation whereby employers abuse workers. So we need to protect employees. And that's why I fully support this bill. Number two, it's important to understand that work-life balance is very important. We have seen employees committing suicide because of stress. This is imposed by employers who do not respect the working hours and the work-life balance. So it's important we understand this and not just oppose for the sake of opposing. Number two, we need to understand also, because I've been hearing many people saying this is a bill proposed by a young person. They need to understand young people also have responsibilities beyond the formal employment. Some are engaging in productivity, making, contributing to the home, welfare in their homes, and we should not take advantage of that. There are some people who are saying the life is changing. Yeah, we are in a changing lifestyle, but it's important to understand, as much as we are in exponential age, which is technological age, workers need to be respected and allowed to work within the specified working hours. Anything beyond that should be subjected to compensation that has to be agreed between an employee and an employer. Number three, it's important to also understand that we should not take advantage of unemployment. We know, of course, like in Kenya and the rest of the world, the the demand for work or the supply for work is limited compared to the people who want work. So employers taking advantage of unemployment in countries like Kenya and other countries is unacceptable, and we must protect the dignity, the respect, and ensure employees work in an environment which is not toxic and which understands that they are there to work within a specified period of time. So with those few remarks, I fully support this bill, and I request my colleagues to understand that the bill was brought based on reasons that have been observed in line with the current working environment. Thank you, and I support the bill.
Madam Lilian Sioi.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker, for giving me this chance to stand up and oppose the bill. I happen to be a member of a Labour Committee. I sit in that committee. And as we were going through it, Mr. Speaker, I felt like we have a number of loopholes. I stand to oppose this bill. One, I feel it is going to promote laziness amongst the employees, Mr. Speaker. The reason as to why I'm saying this is because when I'm working and I know by 5 I'm supposed to leave, whether I have completed what I was supposed to do or I have not completed, my employer will not call me to ask about any other business, apart from the following day in the morning at 8 when I resume duty. So, Mr. Speaker, I feel like this bill is going to make our employees lazy. Secondly, Mr. Speaker, this bill is going to make our employees rude, and it is going to make employers lose the powers of being an employer. Because I'm trying to imagine calling an employee, probably maybe there is something you want to ask, Mr. Speaker, and the employee disconnects the call because it is past the working hours, Mr. Speaker. I feel that will be very rude of the employee to the employer, and it might even cause more losing of jobs, because I don't think employers will stand that, Mr. Speaker. Thirdly, I feel this bill is going to affect our economy. Our economy is going to drop. I say that because when I'm supposed to work and finish my duties by 7 and I don't, or maybe by 5 and I don't, then I go home without completing, then the following day is when I'm coming to continue with what I was supposed to do. That is laxity of work. I want to give a good example of a driver. Probably maybe the driver was supposed to take some goods to a certain place. Then in between, probably maybe there's some accident or something happens in between, and you are not able to reach to your destiny, and time has elapsed. Then that driver stops at there and say that my time is up, and therefore I have to be paid because I have not reached to my destination, and I need to get a place to put up and probably maybe even feed. So, Mr. Speaker, I don't agree with this bill. I feel like there are some amendments that we need to amend on this bill before we pass it. But passing it as it is, we will be jeopardizing the powers of our employers. Thank you so much.
The Honorable Gitonga Murugara.
Mr. Speaker, I contributed on this one, so I can't speak a second time. I'm anxiously waiting for the next one, which is equally bad.
Oh, you already booked again?
Yes.
You wait until the next business comes. From the look of things, I don't think there's anybody who okay, move it. What's the honorable members? Well, and who are you? Oh yeah, okay, Kiguma MP, proceed please.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker. I think I start first to oppose the bill as it has been brought, and I support the Labour Committee for rejecting the bill in totality. However, I also want to point out that, like some of my colleagues have observed, there are some very pertinent issues that need to be looked at seriously regarding the work-life balance that we keep talking about to our employees. There are employers who abuse that trust and some people are working 24 hours a day. Because once you go home, they start sending you messages through WhatsApp, they send you emails, you have a laptop that you take home, and I think it's totally and entirely unfair that we put some of our employees through some very unfair labor practices. So as much as I oppose this, I think from where it came from a good intention. I would not put any ill will on the person who moved the bill. However, based on our circumstances and where we are, I would think of an area I come from. I come from Kigumo, and we are tea growers and coffee growers. And like someone has asked, if you have a driver who is taking tea leaves to the factory and his shift is over, does he stop the vehicle, stop speaking calls, disconnects? What do we do under those circumstances? Some issues are not critical. You cannot say that he's a doctor, so he's supposed to be working 24 hours. What do we do about our young people who are working in business process outsourcing? Those are areas who are covering the whole world, and they work for companies that work odd hours, depending on where they come from. When I see that the Honorable Senator is proposing that we form a committee for any company that has more than 10 employees, so that they discuss when you can pick calls and when you can disconnect calls, I think it's a nuisance element there, in the sense that you cannot have companies who employ thousands of employees, and I'm giving an example like Safaricom, having them to come and decide and agree on how we will be communicating via SMS, via calls, what time to pick, when to disconnect, and when you are allowed maybe to even abuse your employer. I think we should reject. What we should encourage, as much as we are a lawmaking house, both Senate and the National Assembly, some bills ought to go through some critical analysis by the House Business Committees, so that if a bill is found to be wanting or lacking in some element, we are able to advise the person moving the bill that maybe it can be improved in this nature, maybe it can be helped in certain ways, so that also we don't do work that we give a lot of work to our committees to look at some bills, and maybe they would otherwise be looking at other important bills and issues that would affect employees. So I stand to reject in totality and entirety of the bill and support the Labour Committee for doing the same. I thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Ms. Kemei, did you contribute on this bill? Okay. Under the circumstances, it looks like there's no more member of parliament member who wants to contribute on this bill. Well, can the mover be called upon to reply?
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mine first of all is to thank all the members of this House who has contributed on the report. And I think they have enriched the bill in a wider way. And Mr. Speaker, we have gotten a lot of information that were overlooked, whereby you can't move the issue of employment from a civil case to a criminal case, because that's one of the areas that they have done a lot of effect, whereby the issue of employment, if there is issue between the employer and the employee, is about a civil case, whereby members have clarified and said they go by damages, but you cannot take them to criminal case, Mr. Speaker. I want to say, Mr. Speaker, that the issue of the person who registered the bill could be right, but Mr. Speaker, most of the issues that he has raised, Mr. Speaker, are covered in the employment law, the issue of compensation, the issue of overtime, and therefore, Mr. Speaker, we don't have to legislate on switching on and switching off the phone. I think he should develop a policy that can be able to guide on those issues without necessarily going back to registration. Mr. Speaker, the members has put currently the government, mostly or the workers are not working on hours. They are working on output, whereby we don't consider too much on the hours the person is working, but mostly on the output. And also, Mr. Speaker, it has been confirmed is that most of the institutions that deal with workers have rejected the bill. The Public Service Commission has rejected it. COTU, which starts and works for the workers, has rejected it. The employers' organization has rejected it. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, as I say, this bill, Mr. Speaker, as the committee have said, and most members has confirmed, it needs to be rejected. And those members who feel that the bill is necessary should look for a way that it can be legislated on a policy way, but we can't legislate a law in this nature. Mr. Speaker, I respond. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I beg to reply, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, I defer the putting of the question on this bill to another date. In the meantime, I'll go back to the order. This has been ordered again, so we have order number 10. Sorry, number 9, which is the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2022. Yes,
Order number 9, the Natural Resources Benefit Sharing Bill, Senate Bill number 6 of 2022, second reading.
Proceed, Honorable Kemei.
Honorable Chair, Honorable Speaker, I stand on behalf of the Chair and members who wish that this bill be deferred to a later date. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
Fair enough, granted. This bill is also ordered, now it's order number 9. It's also deferred to a later date. We now go to order number 10, which is the original order number 9, the National Disaster Risk Management. What's your point of order, Honorable Oundo?
Honorable Speaker, I think for neatness and for record purposes, Parliament is a house of records. The author or the mover of the bill is Kimani Chungwa, leader of the majority party. So unless my honorable colleague is seeking deferment on behalf,
she did not move.
Or if she's seeking deferment on behalf of the mover.
That's a communication.
Yeah, so we need for neatness purposes.
Fair enough. Next order.
Order number 10, the National Disaster Risk Management Bill, National Assembly Bill number 24 of 2023, second reading.
Where is the leader of the majority to move this one? Do we have any communication from the, yes, Honorable Murugara, the chair of the JLAC?
May we kindly also step that one down?
Yeah.
Because the leader of majority is not here to move it.
Okay.
We have other business ahead, which I think
So
we are ready to transact.
your request is we defer it to
Request
another
that
date.
we defer to a later
Okay,
date.
granted. I've deferred this one again. Next order.
Order number 11, the Petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2022, second reading.
Yes, the Honorable Ochieng.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move that the Petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill, the National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2022, be now read a second time. Mr. Speaker, the public petitions is one of the very new and novel ways in which our new constitution made it mandatory to ensure that Kenyans are able to participate in parliamentary proceedings. They are able to ensure that their matters count the floor of Parliament, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, just like anybody can petition the High Court of Kenya today, any Kenyan can also petition Parliament in whatever manner, whatever form. Mr. Speaker, so this process of petition in Parliament has been going on since the new constitution came to be. And so the reason this bill was proposed was to just streamline that process, to streamline the way Kenyans engage with Parliament in terms of petitions, to make it easier for Kenyans to petition Parliament, to make it easier for Parliament to communicate with the rest of the world in as far as the petition is concerned, Mr. Speaker, and to ensure that petitions don't take so much time once they are brought to Parliament. Mr. Speaker, today, under our new constitution, anybody can petition the High Court or Supreme Court just by a letter. You do a letter, handwritten, then it have to be printed. You send it there, and they're duty bound to act on it. Yet, in Parliament today, the way we've worked around receiving petitions, the way we've got around processing those petitions, makes it difficult for Kenyans to engage with the Parliament. And so this amendment, Mr. Speaker, is meant to ensure that the petitioners can approach this Parliament without undue regard to form and formalities, without due regard to so many things that they must provide to us. And that's why, Mr. Speaker, these amendments talk about having a standard form that a petitioner just goes to the website, fills it in, and brings back, Mr. Speaker. We are removing, Mr. Speaker, the requirement that the petitioner must provide so much evidence about what is petition in Parliament about. The only thing we are saying now that this new bill is that a petitioner just needs to tell us, is this matter pending in any court of law? If it's pending in court of law, don't bring to us the proceedings in that court. Just tell us the case number, and that will be sufficient. For now, we ask you to bring, the pleadings therein, the judgment therein. Now, what Parliament will require under this new amendment is just tell us what case number, in what court. Is it commercial division? Is it a criminal division? In which part of the country? And that will suffice, Mr. Speaker. Number three, Mr. Speaker, there are people who have been saying that, we should not, the clerk should not be the one communicating the petitioners. The petitioners should be communicated to by the petitions committee, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, you can imagine if someone petitions Parliament today about flies, and maybe the petition is not done in the form required, or is not done in the manner that Parliament should look at it, why would a petition go to the committee for the committee to look at whether the petition is eligible or not? We as a committee of procedure and those rules of this House think that the clerk of the assembly should have some residual powers to summarily deal or communicate with the petitioners on matters where the petition does not meet form, where the petition does not, for example, disclose who is the petitioner. Why would the clerk take that kind of petition to the committee? If it's very clear to the clerk that this is a matter that is ongoing in court and what is being given to Parliament is not sufficient, why do you go to the committee? So we're still retaining the role of the clerk, because initially someone is proposing that the committee is the one that should communicate to the petitioner. Mr. Speaker, all the communication that comes from Parliament, even the committee ones, to the judiciary, to the presidency, they pass through and they are done under the hand of the clerk, not under the hand of the committee. And so we are retaining the residual powers of the clerk to communicate whatever decision that we make as a House or as a committee to the petitioner, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the matters upon which anybody will petition Parliament are diverse. They are not one or two. They are as wide as the world is. And so what we are saying is that once a petition is processed and allowed to go through, then it now goes to the committee, and the committee alone cannot make the final decision on a matter under petition. So we are saying that once the committee sits and deliberates on a petition, the report of that committee should be brought back to this House, so that the matter of a petition cannot end at the committee. The committee says that, we looked at this matter, and therefore we think this is the position that we take, and the matter ends there. Whether the committee of petitions approves or investigates, it must be brought back to this House, whether the House decides on the petition one way or the other. Speaker, the hallmark of this amendment, Mr. Speaker, is just to make it easier. And I want to tell Kenyans today that when this amendment passes, don't struggle with so many letters. Just go to the parliamentary website or come to Parliament. You'll get a standard form that has what you need to provide. There is a checklist, what you need to provide, and has down there a place where you sign and indicate to us your contacts. Then you submit it. You can submit it online. You don't have to travel to Nairobi if you are in Lodwar or in Ugenya. You submit it online. We'll receive it, process it normally, and get back to you on the address or the telephone number or the email you provided in that form. As simple as that. Number two, Mr. Speaker, we also want to make it easier for the Speaker of the Assembly to process these particular petitions. And that's why we are saying the Speaker should have a secretariat, an office here, where he will look at these petitions and is able to also communicate and tell the petitioner that, look, your petition was received and it complies with the rules and it has been, committed to the relevant committee, without having to go to the committee to come back and then say, oh, we've now received. There should be at least a proper back and forth feedback mechanism that help us do this, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the Committee on House Rules made a couple of amendments to the bill to make it easier. And therefore, we are going to modify one of the amendments that require that petition should only include the case number and the name of the court, like I've said. We will maintain the clerk's role in looking at admissibility compliance with the rules as required. Mr. Speaker, we'll also retain the existing timelines. Because again, we cannot have petitioners coming in and the petition staying here for so long without being looked at. But also, we can also not limit so much the time that Parliament has to deal with petitions, and that is dealt with, Mr. Speaker, in this. And the clerk is then duty-bound to communicate the petitioner at the time when the petition is accepted, at the time the petition is processed, and the decision of the House on the petition. So, Speaker, we believe that with this, it will be very easier for Kenyans to engage with this House in as far as the petitions are concerned. And, Mr. Speaker, let me conclude by thanking and extending a hand of gratitude to the Office of the Clerk, the Office of the Speaker, in ensuring that this bill is processed as quickly as it has been. Mr. Speaker, I beg to move and request Honorable Murugara, my senior, to second. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I beg to second the second reading of the Petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill 2022, and I fully associate myself with the debate and expressions of the mover, the Honorable Ocheng, and rise to state that it's vitally important that we look at this act in view of the constant amendments we have made to our standing orders as regards public petitions. We now have a public petitions committee that deals with all petitions that come from the public, save for the designated ones, which have to go to the relevant technical committees of the House, which have to deal with those ones. It is also important to state the proposed amendments, beginning with the requirement that when you present a petition to Parliament, you have to provide the evidence. First, you have to provide your own names and addresses, contact numbers, physical, email, telephone. This is vitally important so that later you are contacted when it becomes necessary, either to appear before the committee or to receive the verdict of the committee. We have also a proposed amendment that even where matters are pending before the court, it is important to provide evidence or judgment so that the committee will know exactly how far the matter has gone and whether it is sub judice or not sub judice. Proceedings before the court may be limited in that pleadings may service, but also a judgment or decree of the court may serve the purpose. We have the proposed amendment on the clerk of the relevant house conveying the petition to the committee to ascertain whether that petition meets the requirements. Extremely important in that instead of summarily dismissing the petition, where it has an out of merit, let the committee make that decision. Then we have also other provisions that are being introduced so that our petitions can actually move with the speed, and that when the public brings the petition here, the public will expect outcome as stated in the proposed amendment. We have a summary rejection of the petition by the committee where the petition has not met the requirements of the Constitution, or there is a pending case in court and therefore the petition is sub judice. If the petitioner fails to comply with the directions of the committee given under this act, again, that particular petition can actually be rejected. Where the petition meets the relevant requirements, then the committee will actually forward the petition to the clerk of the National Assembly, who will in turn transmit the petition to the Speaker for tabling in the House. This is where the Speaker comes over and reads the petition and then commits it to the relevant committee of the House. We have a new Section 5 being introduced where every petition shall, upon tabling before the respective House of Parliament, stand referred to the relevant committee established for purpose of considering petitions in accordance with the standing orders of the House. What Parliament has in mind here is that National Assembly as a public petitions committee, and this is the committee being referred to here, with exceptions that there are some petitions which may be referred to other committees depending on their nature. Then finally, the committee will communicate its decision in writing to the petitioner. Again, very important, because the petitioner is out there awaiting outcome of the petition and needs to know through a written communication how this House has decided on that petition. Finally, may I state that public petitions are very important modes of citizens in the country bringing their issues to Parliament. While members of Parliament have avenues in including questions, motions, a request for statements, etc., and bills, plus whatever else I have not mentioned, members of the public can come to Parliament through public petitions. Therefore, it is important we as a House to streamline the procedure of bringing those petitions here, and also emphasize that petitions must be dealt with expeditiously so that citizens can get whatever it is they come here to get. There are many petitions that are pending. The last time we had the public petitions was swamped with public petitions which are undetermined. And this is why we are saying there needs to be an expeditious method of ensuring that that committee disposes those petitions. Mr. Speaker, with those remarks, I beg to second.
Fair enough. Honorable members, I now propose the question that the petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2022 be read a second time. The Honorable Kihungi Peter.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Speaker. I start to support the amendment by the committee. Mr. Speaker, there has been an outcry in Parliament mostly from petitioners that has been lined at the Committee on Petition. And I think this is a wise way whereby the committee in charge can be able to assist the petition committee by managing the petitions which are coming, whether they meet the threshold. Mr. Speaker, by this, we will be able to keep the timeline because it is clearly put that the petition should be done, maybe the petitioner should be communicated within 15 days. I think, Mr. Speaker, if we don't have now another way of managing the public and seeing how maybe the petition, we can offload some of the works that are lying on the hearts of the petition committee, Mr. Speaker, we might find ourselves in areas whereby the general public might feel as if we are not able to deliver. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, on the issue whereby the committee can be able to look on how, whether the petition meets the threshold is extremely important, and also having a format that is easy and very defined for the petitioner to be able to put all the information that are needed and being able to communicate to the petitioner in time on changes that are required on the petition. Because some of the people who petition, sometimes they don't do their homework. They just want to bring a petition, maybe within one page. They have not put details. I think it's important that there is a wider distribution whereby the petition can be looked whether it meets the threshold. The petitioner is being communicated, and he's advised on what he should do. And if the petitioner fails maybe to work within a timeline, then that petitioner can be done away with. But a serious petitioner, I know, when advised on what to do, will be able to comply. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I think this is one way that the committee is working on, delivering on issues of petition, which I think is one area that maybe the petition committee is finding a lot of hurdles on handling some of the petitions which have not been done well. Therefore, Mr. Speaker, I start to support.
The Honorable Oundo, Dr. Wilberforce.
Thank you, Honorable Speaker, for this opportunity to also lend an award to the Petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2022. Honorable Speaker, as the mover has eloquently put it, Kenyans come to Parliament as an avenue for the last resort. And the substantive speaker made the same sentiments yesterday. They want answers, they want solutions to their problems, they want intervention, they need help. So Parliament must make it as easier, as accommodative as it can be to allow a Kenyan or a group of Kenyans to petition Parliament to listen to their problems, to listen to their cries, and to make sure their petition is processed to the logical end. Honorable Speaker, just looking at what is contained in this particular bill, not having read the committee report, we are a bit apprehensive, but I have been assured by my neighbor that they have attended to those issues that were raising issues in respect of this bill. Number one, Honorable Speaker, we are putting a requirement you must attach evidence of the efforts made to have the matter raised in raising the petition addressed by relevant body for purpose of subsection 1F. Honorable Speaker, I do not know the nature of the evidence, and I'm sure in the course of time, the relevant clerk of the two houses will develop the mode and the type of evidence that needs to be presented here. Honorable Speaker, I want to give a typical scenario. You can be denied access, for example, if there is an issue in any particular area, whoever is petitioned against can deny access so that you have no evidence at all that you ever submitted that petition. So as is requirement of the Constitution, we shouldn't make it so onerous, so cumbersome and difficult to present a petition. On the demand that must be evidence that have made attempts elsewhere, that needs to be relooked at clearly to make it easier. Honorable Speaker, there is a requirement here that the clerk of the relevant House shall convey each petition to the relevant committee of the House responsible for ascertaining whether the petition meets the requirements of this Act. I want to request the committee to delete that provision, because the committee, as much as might have a clerk, might not have the technical competence to determine the admissibility of a petition. This should be left in the hands of the clerk of the two houses, who can populate their office with technical staff to enable them assess the admissibility of the petition to this House. We must also guard, Honorable Speaker, where we're going to have a flood of petitions, that quite a number of them are frivolous and are just a terrible waste of public time and public resources. Honorable Speaker, members of public petition parliament, they do not petition committees. We know committees, Parliament works through committees, but ultimately, the ownership of any decision of the Parliament lies on the floor of the House, lies on the plenary. I would therefore request, Honorable Speaker, that in the subsequent amendments, however small it is, however innocuous it is, however inconsequential it is, all the reports of the relevant committee to whom the petition has been committed must table that report on the floor of the House, so that the House is seized of the matter and makes a decision. All the petitioners would want to hear their petition prosecuted on the floor of the House, so that they know that the matter has been adequately been addressed. Finally, as I call to conclude, Honorable Speaker, this House, as per the Constitution and the Standing Order, communicates to members of the public through the clerk. Therefore, what is contained in clause 5(2), which says the committee shall in writing notify the petition of the decision of the House, we need to change the same and clearly indicate the clerk shall in writing notify the petitioner of the decision of the House. Honorable Speaker, the amendments are making it easier to present the petitions to this House. But Honorable Speaker, for the last 2 weeks since we resumed from recess, we have been grappling with the very many petitions that have not been processed, where it's taking inordinately too long to process the petition. I want to urge the House leadership, I want to urge the committee in charge of petitions, that Kenyans are looking upon Parliament not to be a bottleneck to addressing their grievances, their problems, but to be a facilitator. And for us to be a facilitator, the committee in response to Public Petitions Committee must be brought to order and told they must process all the petitions as required under the standing order, which is within 60 days. Any delay beyond that, this Parliament should sanction the committee to ensure that the Kenyans do not petition in this House in vain. Kenyans do not also group Parliament as part of the judiciary, where even a mere matter, a simple matter, can take 10, 15 years in the corridors of law, in the courts, without being concluded. We want speedy conclusion of matters. We are enough numbers in this Parliament. 349 is enough numbers. We could even have several committees, public petition committees, so that we expeditiously deal with petitions before us. With those few remarks, Honorable Speaker, I support the bill as presented and subsequent, based on the report of the committee on the intended amendments. Thank you, Honorable Speaker.
The Honorable Member of Parliament for West Mugirango. Yes, yes, everybody's hearing you. Proceed. You're on. Proceed. We can hear you.
You can hear me?
But you can go to the next one if you have a problem with this one. Okay. Go ahead now there.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, that sounds like me. Thank you, Mr. Speaker, sir, for this opportunity to contribute to this very, very noble bill that is brought before this House. Mr. Speaker, I'm happy in the first instance as a practicing lawyer that we are trying to tidy up the procedures of members of the public approaching this House. Like courts of law, the Civil Procedure Act requires that before you approach any court, you must confirm that there is no pending matter relating to the same subject before any court of law. I am happy that in these proposed amendments, we are also making a requirement that whoever approaches this House must certify that there is no pendency of such matter before any court of law, or if a court has pronounced itself on the same, then a judgment regarding the same subject is brought before this House so that the House is guided as it navigates on how to resolve that petition. I am also equally happy that now, by these amendments, anybody who brings a petition to this honorable House shall be required to append evidence so that every petition should be evidence-based. And this, therefore, eliminates bare allegations being brought before this court in the name of petitions. And by these amendments, Mr. Speaker, these procedures are making it easy for so many petitioners, particularly losers of elections, who say they have very brilliant ideas and that by reason that they have not been elected to this House, they cannot prosecute their agenda. By these amendments, it is helping us now to give every member of the public access to Parliament, notwithstanding that they were not the ones who were declared winners in an election that brought their representative to this House. And Mr. Speaker, from the region where I come from, I find so many politicians prosecuting their grievances in funerals or in charges. With these amendments, Mr. Speaker, I will be moving in future to also propose legislation that since we have opened the floor of the House, I'm sure the county assemblies are going to also pick up the queue and also adopt these amendments when we bring them. It will therefore negate or obviate the need of people going to church functions, going to mosques, going to funerals, and prosecuting things which otherwise would be prosecuted in the various houses or chambers of elected members of Parliament. And with these amendments, Mr. Speaker, this House will now not navigate into matters that are sub judice, because we will be fully informed once of any petition that this matter is either before a competent court of law tribunal, and we will therefore not run into the risk of sub judice. And finally, Mr. Speaker, sir, with these amendments and tidying up of the procedure of petitions in this House, we will help expedite the processing of every public petition so that there will be no delay and there will be no challenge to any petitioner that the procedures are unclear. And I want to thank the mover of this motion, my senior Honorable David Ochieng. He has been very articulate. He has been spot on in, making the points that deserve to be mentioned whenever a mover does. So I really support this and look forward to the day it is brought for voting. I thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Honorable members, there being no more member of parliament or National Assembly here wishes to contribute on this, I think it's only fair we call the mover to reply. Call on the mover to reply. Honorable Ochieng David, proceed and reply.
Thank you so much, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, I want to thank the members who have spoken on this, Mr. Speaker, and request this House to hasten the process of moving this bill to the next stage so that Kenyans are able to access, interact with Parliament and petition Parliament in a manner that makes it easier, not just for the petitioners, but also for us as Parliament to deal with their petitions, Mr. Speaker. I believe that these amendments are meant to make the work of Parliament easier and resolve Kenyans' issues in a timely manner, Mr. Speaker. I beg to reply.
Fair enough. The chair directs that the question be put at a later date. Next order.
Order number 12, the Regional Development Authorities Bill, National Assembly Bill number 7 of 2023, second reading.
Where is the chair of that committee? The chair is not in. The chair, okay, under the circumstances, I'll defer this order number 12 to another date. Next order.
Order number 13, motion, compliance to Article 54(2) of the Constitution regarding employment of persons with disabilities in public institutions.
Where is the chair of the committee? Chair of the committee, chairperson of Committee on National Cohesion and Equal Opportunity? Not in the House? Under the circumstances, I will defer this one, also this order number 13 to another date. Next order.
Order number 14, motion, report of the Auditor General on financial statements of selected state corporations.
The chairperson of the Public Investments Committee on Commercial Affairs and Energy. The chairperson is not in the chambers. Under the circumstances, I direct that this order number 14 be deferred to another date. Honorable members, we have exhausted the business on the order paper for the day. Under the circumstances, it's only fair that we adjourn the House. Honorable members, the time is 5:57 p.m. This House stands adjourned until Tuesday, the 5th of March, 2024 at 2:30 p.m.
The businesses that came after the petitions to Parliament Procedure Amendment Bill, National Assembly Bill number 51 of 2022. After that, then the other bills, especially the chairpersons for those departmental committees, were not present in the House, and thereby those businesses were deferred to a later date. Order number 14 was the last in the business for this afternoon sitting, And of course, the mover was not present as well, so that necessitated the adjournment of the House business, of course, until the next sitting, that is next week, Tuesday in the afternoon sitting. So that has been it. We are glad that you have been with us throughout this particular proceeding. Allow me to return this live broadcast back to our KBC studios. See you next time. That is next week, Tuesday. Have a lovely evening. Goodbye.